the two classes that are coming our way right now, today and Thursday, are very different than the one that would follow. So in some way, you will quickly forget about these. These are the one I'm going to sort of jam you with a lot of information for preparing you. So maybe you have been curious and you already went in Canvas and in the file, and then you downloaded the quiz review or whatever it's called, lecture or something. And you downloaded the two PDF, I believe it's two. And you've already started looking at these. And I would say you probably, by looking at these, 50% of them probably makes already sense, or at least you recognize them because you've seen them in the past. I will just do this review for the sake of putting everybody on the same page. I already, last night, I received a consulting group 2 PowerPoint, their draft. And so they may have been surprised to see that I actually started working on it and I already sent them feedback. And that's what I did. And that's how I'm going to work it. I mean, I don't promise everybody that if I get something at 8 p.m., I work on it, you know, every time. But it was just there. And I was obviously very curious to see what they were doing. And I couldn't help to get it done. And then I received another one this morning from another team. Hopefully, I should have received one from everyone. So I'm just checking from every group. So I don't think I did. I only received group 2. And which one is this? And this is the group, I believe it's group 3. Yes, group 3. So I received group 2 and group 3. So that's excellent. I will therefore look at that today and give you feedback to group 3. Good job sending it to me. Students, some students, most students get it, but some students don't get it. Some students get it right away, some don't get it for a while. But this is very different than what you used to, because it's almost like you have to think about the fact that I am not trying to teach you like the teacher that you've had for the past 10 years of your life and then grade you. Essentially, I'm trying to do a consulting job, and I'm helping you do the consulting job. So it's not like this is a class, you come to school, you do your homework, you get done, and you move on. This is your opportunity to do for real a consulting job. Because what is, I mean, the first question is, has anyone done something like this before, beside the people that did it for the last few months? So yes, nobody has done the opportunity. I mean, anyone has created the strategies for a multi-billion-dollar fast-moving consumer goods here? No. How likely you will be doing that in the next 5 years for real? What do you think? How likely you will be doing this for the next 5 years? So who thinks it's very likely? Let's make it simple. We think it's a little bit likely. All right, so for some reason, I'm not getting much answer. Hopefully you're all hearing me, but it's not very likely. But it is more likely if you've already done it. If you've already done it, it's called the foot in the door. The foot in the door is if you've done it and you talk to a big company and you tell them you've done it, you know what? They may let you do it again. And this is called fast-paced promotion, which means suddenly you don't stay the assistant of the assistant of the assistant for a very long time, but then you become the assistant of the director very fast because you've done it. Oh, you've done it. Okay, you can help me then. And so that's not all students understand that, but how do you become? So when I ask for some reason, I only have one person as a video, Nayeli. So thank you, Nayeli. You're the only one on video. But when I'm in the classroom and everybody has no choices but being there, and I asked them, who wants to make more than $100,000 a year? Pretty much everybody says, I want to. And who wants to be the assistant of the vice president or the director, right? And then half of the class says that's what they want to do. So then I go to the other half and says, how are you going to make all that money? They have no plan. It's just a dream of making all of this money. The daily fantasy of making all that money. You make all that money because of your job title or your responsibility or the risk that you're taking. The more risk you take, the more money you make. Then the more you're doing something that not too many people can do, the more you'll be making money as well. So if you want to make the money, you got to do what it takes to make the money. And to do that is you have to work at the highest level as possible, with the highest level of responsibility as possible. So you could be the owner of your own business and make that kind of money, but you have all the responsibility. Means the buck stops on you. And therefore, you will be doing what we're doing right now. So if you say, oh, I don't want to work for a big company, I want to work for a small company, you could be making a lot of money, but you would be doing what we're doing right now. So what we're doing right now, it's not a university just exercise. It's the best thing you can do for yourself, essentially. If you are like 99.9% of the students that want to make more than $100,000. So sometimes people have a hard time figuring out how much they want to make. So do you want to make $100,000? Oh, I don't know. Okay, so do you want to buy a house, go on vacation, a nice vacation, and own a car? Yeah, maybe have a family. Yeah. Okay, so if you want all that, you need more than $100,000. Oh, okay, I see. So therefore, the sooner you learn this, the sooner you'll be out of the zone of eating fast food every day, sort of thing. So it is very important for you. And I'm just telling it to you sort of very frankly, because that's kind of like, that's my experience, no offense, but it's my experience. The students don't have the real reality understanding of the situation. So studying in the university, why do you go to the university? Because it's not about what you learn, it's about what you become. That's very much in line of what I was just saying, is you learn a lot of things, but the reality, let's be honest, I'm a professor, I have a PhD, I went to the university 10 years and all this, and before that and so forth. I have several bachelors, several masters, and anyway. And so I've learned a lot, but you forget a lot. You can't remember everything. So what is it that stays is what you become. What this opportunity to learn has made you, and what has been teaching you about yourself, in fact, your weaknesses, your strengths, what you really don't like, what you like, and what you want to learn more. In fact, people start getting old, I think, the minute they get out of the university. They don't realize that. Because when you're at the university, you're young. Why are you young? Because you constantly hear about new things. And if you hear about new things, you keep your mind fresh. So they do research on the 100 years old people. How come they're 100 years old? Because they kept their mind fresh longer. Whoa. So if you can't keep your mind fresh longer, that's how you live longer. That's a big reason how you do that. So these people, you find them when they're 90 years old and they do crossword and puzzles and they still do exercises, they go for walks, they stimulate their mind, they speak to young people, they still are involved in the community. That's how you stay young. So the problem with the people is they go to the university, they work, bust themselves, go crazy, hate everything they do, hate the professor because they give them work. And then they're 22 years old, they graduate, and then it's downhill. And they don't realize that. So life is about learning. Life is about keeping fresh, keeping on top of things. It's easier when you go to the university. Why? Because you're forced to. It's like you train more when you have a coach at the gym or when you go by yourself. Let's be honest, when you have a coach, it's the same thing. So I'm not saying that you should become a professor, which is what I did, because I find it very stimulating, obviously, because I have to, the way I teach 7 years ago is not the way I teach today. I have to keep up. So that's a challenge. And at the same time, I work, you know, on many different real projects. So what you learn is good, but it's what you become. Think about this. What's key in business? So these two slides are going to follow. It sort of should be the slides, my last two slides. So you see, I have a very different way of teaching. I start by the conclusion and summary. So pay attention, because you may understand or you may not understand, but eventually you want to think about, should I look at the slides before at the end of when I reviewed and I'm ready for the quiz, should I look at these slides because they may help me with the project? So to me, the synthesis of business is those four components, which is STP is segmentation, targeting, and positioning. It's the fact that not all customers are the same. So you have to take into consideration that there are different kinds of customers, therefore there's different needs. And understanding those needs is very important. And the next concept that is really important is identifying opportunities. So opportunities are not what you are going to do. So I will say that again many times with you, but opportunities are not what you're going to do. And I'm going to have so many examples that I'm not going to spend too much time on giving you examples now, but just the definition is what's changing in the environment that you can take advantage of. So it's the positive, the constructive things that you can take advantage of. So they're just factors, they're just statements, they are just facts, not strategies, not tactics, not ideas. They are facts, they are sourced, referenced that you can take advantage of. So the primary job of a consultant is to identify opportunities. So this is what you're working on within what you're working on, which is called the SWOT. Then the next thing, which is not always mentioned, but this is after 30 years of consulting and 27 years of teaching, and it's in the literature, but it's very geeky in the literature, so people don't use it as practitioners, but I think it should be. It's an old concept from the 50s, which is still used today, but again, very much by consumer behavior researchers. But I think it's relevant even for practitioner, and when I explain it to a practitioner, they absolutely love it. The students, bachelor students sort of like it. The one that get it, love it. The master students are the one that love it the most. But anyway, it's called just noticeable difference. It's this idea that to succeed, you need to have something better. Okay, but that's obvious. Why are you teaching us that? Well, better is too vague. So to make it less vague is you call it just noticeable. So if it's too noticeable, unfortunately, it can go against you. You're doing something that's too different, may not be the way to succeed. And not different enough is not the way to succeed either. So it's this balance of being right, the right amount of change. And you also do the right amount of change because sometimes you want to keep ammunition for the next change that you want to make. So if you create a product that you make too good, you make it harder for yourself for the next product. So you make it good. People like good. And you have what was going to make it too good. You keep it because that's already 50% of what you're going to add to the next generation of the product. So you only need to work for the next 50%. And if you're smart, you always do 150. That way you have 100 and you have 50 for the next generation. So you're 50% ahead for the work for the next time. And so that's what you do. You work 150% product, you remove 50, you give them 100, they're satisfied and they keep on going on. Satisfaction should be there, but I don't need to explain satisfaction because satisfaction is within every one of these. Would you satisfy? You satisfy a specific need, that's STP. What need do you satisfy? You satisfy a need that is changing, a need that is growing, that's potential, that's the opportunities. What satisfaction do you provide? The right amount of satisfaction. Again, that's just noticeable difference. On the side, you see it says research. When I was a student, very early on, my first bachelor, my second bachelor, even my master, I guess. Yeah, even my master. When we got to the discussion of research, I thought this was going to be mathematics we were going to talk about. And I thought, oh, we're going to talk about numbers, formulas. And I have to be honest, there was a number of professors that taught research where he or she made us learn formulas and long formulas that I could only remember for the exam. And maybe 2 hours after the exam, I would remember 50%. The day after, 10%. A week after, maybe 1%. A year after, A month after, 0%. So that was really learning for the sake of learning. There's nothing I gain from this. There's still professors doing that. I don't do it. Maybe that's okay. They can do it. I don't do it because I find that I want the students to understand not the research, complicated content, but they need to understand the mechanism, because the mechanism is what's more important, and you can use it again and again and again, and then your brain remembers the mechanism, but not the details. And in fact, 27 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was a student, this maybe made sense to learn the formulas because you had to use the formulas with your little calculator in order to get the numbers. But nowadays, 99% of the time, what we do is we put them in software, which the software is usually an icon that you click that gives you the number and does all the formulas and calculations. So learning them could be interesting for someone that wants to be maybe a researcher, developing better formulas or something like this. But the reality is we all use software. So we don't really need to know those formulas. So I find what's more interesting is for people to understand the mechanism, because then they can better use the software. They know why they're clicking on those icons, what they're trying to demonstrate by clicking on the icons versus understanding the geekiness of the formula inside and all that. So unless like me, you end up doing a PhD, and then when you end up doing a PhD, it's never going to happen. They're not going to grind you having to learn the formulas. And you have to do this because you're supposed to be an expert and you're supposed to know all the crazy details of everything. And so you learn the formulas. I mean, you learn it till the point that you see that 70% of the PhD students they drop the program because their eyes are falling out of their head so much you're getting jam of this stuff. So I won't do any of these, but I want you to understand the basic principle. So research is therefore interesting because you want to do well STP. You want to do well opportunities, and you want to do well understanding of the point of satisfaction. So because of what you wanting to do well this, you realize that you need to embrace research, because by doing better research, you can get better STP, better opportunities, better J&D. So again, do I like research? No. But do I like to get a good J&D? Yes. How do you get a good J&D? With improving your research. Oh, if I improve my research, I do better opportunity analysis? Yes. Oh, if I improve my research, I do better STP? Yes. And then suddenly you go, okay, therefore research is my tool. So I want to learn better about the tools in order to do a better job. And then that's when you start embracing research by saying, hey, research may not be that boring as much as I thought. I tell you something is true. I explained this to a student 20 years ago. And the students, at the end of the class, I walked back to my office. I walked in my office, sat in my office, and then someone knocked at the door. I opened the door, and here was Isabel. I said, "Ah, Isabel, do you have a question?" Yeah. She says, "Oh, can I sit down with you?" I was fascinated what you said by research. And I was even thinking, maybe I should do a PhD. That sounds very interesting. I said, don't do a PhD. And I said, you can do what you want to do. And I took with her, and then she said, do you know what could help you with one of your research? And usually 99.9% of the time, I say no to this answer, to this question. Because there's a lot of work to teach a student to do research at the level I do it. And they most likely not going to like it. So I said, okay, what do you want to do? And I gave her a little assignment. I give it to her, I don't know, 4 o'clock, 11 p.m., I got an answer. So I responded. She was amazed. Anyway, she got interested and we did the research. She presented it in the US Consumer Research Conference in Chicago, at the University of Chicago. She did this and this and that. She loved it so much. She says, I got inspired. She then worked for Nielsen. Nielsen is one of, if not the largest research company in the world. What does she do now? Now she's the number 2 person at a company called Disney. You know Disney? She's number 2. The second, Isabelle Goussakian. You go on LinkedIn and you see corporate president of Disney. That was my student. And you look in their LinkedIn and she puts, you know, that she went to CSUN, and she puts, and at CSUN, I was inspired by research by one of my professors. That's me. I just did what I did to you, essentially. That was the start. She's like, oh, I get it. Research. She makes a lot more than $100,000. You can multiply this by quite a few numbers. So she got it. And so that's why this class should be interesting to some of you, I guess. And so because it's real. So you do research not because you want to go crazy with the formulas. No, there's a software that's going to do it for you, because you can understand that's how you make things better. So it's a beautiful tool. So instead of putting STP opportunities and G&D and research as a 4th line, I put it on the side is because you couldn't say that you like what you see as the line and not like research. It's the supporting one. It's the column. It's like the vein that brings the blood to all of these. So you have to like this, okay? Now, in business, so I've created this concept, which I call Darwinership. That I invented this thing. What is Darwinership? It looks like there's 2 words in there. It looks like there's Darwin and there's like, I don't know, entrepreneurship or something like that. You're right. There's 2 words in there. It's Darwinism, you know, which is the survival of the fittest, and entrepreneurship, which is a business concept. So then I call it the business survival of the fittest. So what do you do with Darwinership? Darwinership is to survive, you need to adapt. And I can't think of a better project than A2 Milk to implement that. You want to survive? Adapt. I mean, that's where they are. They are in a situation they need to adapt. So the best tool to do it is to innovate. And you know why they hired her? She said it last week. Because they needed someone that was going to inject innovation in the company. So she's marketing director, but the reality is she's a director of innovation and marketing. They said, that's what we put it in because we need to inject innovation. Perfect. That's step 1 of surviving, is you need to start thinking innovation. But then I said something else. Innovation is good, but I think there's more than innovation. And again, I cannot think of a better example. I will use it in the future for my future students, but in your case, it should talk to you much more, is to say it's beyond innovation. It's to reinvent yourself. And why is A2 Milk the best example for that, about reinventing yourself? Why? Can one person tell me why you think A2 Milk is probably one of the best examples I could use to explain someone? But it's beyond innovation. It's to reinvent yourself. Michael DeMoro, what do you think?
I think you get new perspective and new ideas.
But why should they reinvent themselves?
Into something where they're able to adapt to, you know, the situation
to the future, yeah.
Yeah, to the future, right?
Yeah.
You always have to figure
why
out.
Why do I say innovation is for every company and reinvent yourself is for every company too, but more so for A2 Milk company? What does A2 Milk company do?
They produce milk.
What kind of milk?
Nutritious milk.
What would be the name of that type of milk?
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
What is the name of the type of milk they make?
A2 Milk, right? I mean,
who invented it?
Oh, it was German from New Zealand. It was some, I don't have the name on top of my head.
Well, they invented it. It's that simpler than that.
Well, I mean,
so A2 milk company, what do? They sell A2 milk. Who invented it? They invented it. So a company that invented something that is known for an invention, and they have to make a next innovation, how easy it is. It's very difficult. Why? Because they're comfortable. They invented it. Yes, Audrey.
I was gonna say the same thing, that they're probably one of the best companies, because like that's just what they do, and like they're the creators. So
They're the
at
creator.
this point, yeah, they have the avenue to themselves. So they have to do something different, and it's a lot harder for them.
It's harder for them. It's harder for them. What's harder? You know, it's like you win the gold medal for butterfly swimming, the 200-meter butterfly swimming at the Olympic Games. What do people say? Congratulations. What's the second thing they say? Are you going to come in 4 years to win again? Like, come on, I just won. I'm still, my swimsuit is still wet. They're still asking me if I come back and get the gold in 4 years. That's brutal. That's what people think in their brain. And therefore, for someone which is called A2 milk, company selling A2 milk, it's tough. It's very tough. Because then you go, okay, so either you dominate that and you block everybody else, which, as we can see, they can't do that, unfortunately, or you have to reinvent yourself. The A2 milk, there's no innovation. The innovation is not a choice. It's reinvent themselves, the only choice. That's why it's a freaking good project, because you are put in a seat where you're not going to innovate. You're going to have to reinvent the company. And then you go, oh, okay, I get it. Oh man, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, look, I've never done this. I can't even innovate. I'm learning just to innovate. Now you want us to reinvent? What? He's crazy, this professor. Who do you think we are? My students have done it in the past, but they need to put themselves in the pilot seat, in the gold medal seat, right away, in that posture. But what do you think is the tool to reinvent yourself? What's the best tool to reinvent yourself? What's the best tool to reinvent yourself? And I'm going to ask Miranda Kinder. What's the best tool to reinvent yourself?
I would probably say the motivation to do it.
Boom, I came back to this.
Oh, probably opportunity. Yes.
Well, yeah, but before opportunity.
I don't know.
To reinvent yourself, now you're in a position where you have to fully embrace and commit yourself to research, where you're gonna have to do that. So let me see. I see, Michael, you had your hand up, I believe.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say exactly what you said. I was gonna say devote yourself to research and like the company, so that you're able to reinvent and bring more ideas to yourself.
Yeah, you're gonna have to say, wow, okay, so how should we research? Research is you almost have to turn yourself into like a specter, like a ghost, like a phantom, like a spirit, where you just become part of the environment, part of the world. But you're not a stone, you're not a wall, you're not a cloud, you're not a sun, you're not oxygen. You are at the same time everything. And you're just absorbing, you're a sponge. And you're a magnet. You're a magnet of all. So now you're thinking, wow, what are you taking some medicine. No, I'm not crazy. It's suddenly you have to become this magnet of information. And therefore, at that moment, is you say, so to be a good researcher is the more your mind is open, the better. Yes. The broader your mind, the better. Yes. And obviously you want to do it as soon as possible because this is such a short time. You don't want to say every day I make my mind more broad. And hopefully by the 7th of July, things will work out in my direction. Is you want to have this very open mind and multi-search to find something. Suddenly you go, bingo. I will show you a few bingos that we did with the students. It's just bingo. I gave you the Valley Hive. I sent you the Valley Hive video. That's a bingo. Hopefully you looked at it, but it's a big bingo. The students didn't have to work very hard, for their own good, because I found the disruption, the big disruption, the big reinvention of honey. I mean, that was a reinvention of honey. This was not an innovation. So the reinvention of honey, I gave it to the students, so they worked on it. That was easier. But in your case, you could almost ask, because remember, we're consultants. Don't fully treat me like a professor. I'm here to tell you good things, brainwash, brainstorm. So if I'm not brainwash, what did I say? That? Brainstorm, just bounce ideas and all this. So I don't have the answer. For this project, unfortunately, I cannot tell you this is the answer. This is the reinvention. Is you're gonna have to come up with lots of them. I gave you 28 reports where there's a lot of them. You cannot do less than the 28 reports. Even just matching the 28 report is very few. So you got to go beyond. So reinventing themselves is very important. Miranda, does that make more sense now? So I was just asking Miranda before, and I sort of cut her and said, no, this is research. And I went to the slide and all that, because I want you to realize this. If you're a consultant, if you are a business owner, if you are an entrepreneur, you're not an entrepreneur because you are the most intelligent person on earth, and therefore it's all in your head and you need no help. The most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that did their research, prepare themselves. The bad entrepreneurs are the ones that do this forever and never pull the trigger because they are procrastinate. So that's not good either. So you want a right balance, which is some research is better than none. The more, the better, but too much kills the project because you become worried about everything. And there's things you can't control. So the next best tool is STP and PST. So I will go into the explanation about the fact that you need to think about the customers first, or you need to think about your strengths first. It's either who's your customers, what do they want, or what are we good at, and based on what we're good at, who wants that? They're both okay, but PST is limits you based on what you're good at, because as a company, you could change your skills to adapt to what people want. So you don't always give people only what you know. So because you could disappear like that. It's like all I know is make Thomas guide as a book. You may not remember this, but 20 years ago, people didn't have a phone to drive around. They had a Thomas book. Thomas book was a big, thick book with the map of Los Angeles. And wherever you went, you took the book, you look at the map, and you said, oh, I'm going here. And then you left the map open, you put it on the side, and then you drove looking at your map. Today, if you say, my strength is to make maps, printed maps, that's not, they all disappeared. Maybe Thomas' book is the only one, and they're not rich anymore selling books of maps. So you can't just use your strength in order to force your strength upon people. You do have to adapt to what people want. So STP is superior to PST. So again, I would go back. Another one I want to stress out is that you have to be good at selling yourself. And that's very, very difficult. Personally, that's probably the thing that I find the most difficult, is to sell myself. So then it's kind of scary because I am a professor, a PhD, I own several businesses. Essentially, on paper, I should be really good at that, but I'm not good. I'm much better at selling other people. Actually, I'm very successful at selling other people. Selling myself, I find it very difficult. They say the shoemaker has the worst shoes, and this is very true. I'm not that good at selling myself, and I was actually screamed at last Thursday as a consultant by someone else because I was essentially selling myself, and I was terrible. And but anyway, that's my weakest point. It's selling myself. However, you cannot say I'm bad at it, therefore I don't work on it. You need to work on it because as a company, you always sell yourself. So what I do to improve it is I have other people sell me when it comes to selling myself, but I'm always trying to improve on that. But a company needs to be good at. So how does it manifest? What's the most common manifestation of this sell yourself? It manifests every day, many, many times. So give us an example. The simple example is, what is different about you? So you take any brand, Apple. What is different about Apple? You need to be able to say in 2 sentences, 3 sentences, what is different about you? Every company has to do this exercise. Are we gonna have to do this exercise for A2 milk? Oh yeah, that's essentially a big part, is what is different about A2 milk. And that's why I already read many reports on A2 milk, and I started reading one from you. And the big problem is they used to be very, very, very different because they had no competitors. But when they had no competitors, nobody knew about A2 milk. So it was great to have no competitors, be very different, but the consumer don't know about you. So the consumer are learning more about you. It's not huge yet, but it's becoming bigger. But at the same time, you have more competitors. So what you used to have as a difference originally is becoming thinner because your competitors not only have the same difference, but sometimes they have even more differences than you. So normally when you hear that, you go, ooh, if I was an investor, would I want to invest in this company? And the most reasonable answer would be no. I don't want to invest in a company that invented something to the point that now they have competitors doing the same thing and even starting to do better, right? Do you agree with that? Any comments on that? Because that's the key.
Yes, I agree with that, Professor.
Who's talking? Sorry, I didn't see you.
Priscilla, sorry.
Oh yeah, Priscilla. Yes. So yes, that's a big issue. We see these competitors growing, and therefore the difference is thinning out. So imagine you presenting to them. There's many ways to start. And remember last time I told you, oh, you could bring this map with all of these big brands, and there's so many brands that they have within and all this, and say, where do we want to be? How did we start? We invented the category, but we quickly got success because the consumers saw the value. But eventually, this value also went through our competitors. What happens is our competitors are becoming Danone and Horizon and Nestle and all of these people. What is going to happen of us? It could be we could be big trouble. Another thing is our company is also exchanged on the stock market. People are getting this information. People are learning about this. So that's another negative. Stock market, people invest in the stock market because sales are going up and because also you're launching new products that are promising. Like A2 milk company who invested the A2 milk company category, which is now, let me just throw a number, $6 billion category and growing 22% a year in America, has invented a new category, which is this and this and that. You put this in the news, people jump on the share because they're going to say if they did it once, they can do it again. They, you know, innovating is difficult. Inventing new categories is two times. If I was asking, you're going to have to find some examples of people that did it, and you're going to try to look for them. And it's very difficult, very, 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 very difficult. I mean, there's one company, it's a French company, it's called Michelin. Michelin invented the tires in like 1901 or whatever, 1902. And then in the 50s, they invented the radial tires, so the tires that we drive right now. Again, so they did two major innovations, which were very important because that's essentially what made the tires become whatever they are. So the first generation of tires invented by Michelin, that was the invention. The second generation of tires invented by Michelin. Now, is Michelin a big company? Yeah. Is it one of the biggest? Yes. Do people know that Michelin is the A2 milk of tires? They don't. Why? That's a good question. I don't know why. I don't even know why Michelin doesn't stress that out. That to me is a major component of this company. The fact that we all driving on tires, which the foundation, they invented anyway. So you see that companies that are able to keep inventing like this are very rare. Sony was one of these companies as well that was able to make major innovation. But as you know, right now, Sony is not a brand that people mention very often. If I ask the students, mention some big electronic brands, you know, they're going to say Samsung, Apple, IBM, maybe, may not be IBM anymore. So things are changing, and that's why Darwinership is very important. So that's why I conclude this with what are the best skills? Market research, and then I say leadership. And why do I say leadership? Why do you think I say leadership? So what I hope that you will keep with you is that research is not a bad word. Research is not doing mathematics. Research is not memorizing some very difficult formulas that you don't know the day after you learn about them. Research is really realizing that the more research, the more you can define and prepare, understand, and increase confidence. So now why I say the best skill is also leadership.
Hey, Professor Vigneron.
Yes.
It's Jack. I found that research tends to be fun when you actually enjoy and like the material. I'm
true.
actually liking the stuff we're learning in this class. So research has actually been pretty fun for me.
Exactly. And you see, I'm not surprised. If I had made a guess, I would have said probably one of the students here, Jack, enjoy the research because you realize that by doing research, you increase your knowledge. And by increasing your knowledge, you increase your confidence. And therefore, you're more likely to succeed. And that's exactly right. And so, and you took the class before, now you're taking this class, so you know that this skill is the next one that you need to have to keep on working. So you confirm that. Now, what about the concept of leadership? And I will draw on this because it is very, very important. So you see here I have an image. It's an image of sheep grazing in the mountains. Okay. What is the most strange things when you see those sheep grazing is that they follow, there's one sheep that they follow. This picture, I took it myself and I was right there and I just observed them. And suddenly there's one sheep that changed the direction, and they all follow that ship. Actually, I tell you a true story, which is kind of a weird story, but it's the story of life. It's the story of my grandpa. My grandpa is famous from World War II because he was very involved in helping people to escape prisons and camps. And he was recognized for saving quite a large of people, Jewish people. So that was in France during World War II. I suppose you all know that there was some very difficult situation, and one of them was what the Jewish people faced. We are not Jewish. My grandpa is not Jewish, but he felt that this was something that he needed to do, help people, and so he put himself as a partisan of the people that were fighting in the behind the curtains to do all kinds of things, and so he was known to, for example, find meats for the people that were that kids or babies and milks and all that, but also find papers and make, I suppose, fake papers for people to be able to escape. So that was his mentality. At the end of the war, he became a butcher, and after the war, he became a butcher, but his specialty was to kill animals, but he wanted to do it because he felt that this was an honor to be doing it, because there's people that needed to eat. And so he wanted to do it because he knew to do it without the animal to suffer. And so he was in Paris, in the biggest killer house in Paris. So the name is Abattoir. And he did this for many, many years. And eventually this abattoir, which is called La Villette, the government decided to turn it into an art center. So right now, if you go to Paris, you will go see the Eiffel Tower. That's what everybody else does. You're going to go see Versailles. You're going to go see the Arc of Triumph. You're going to go see Le Louvre, which is a museum. You're going to go see La Villette because it's an art center. But La Villette, this building got changed a lot. It used to be the killer house. When they closed the La Villette, they had one ship. There was one ship that they used for many years to lead the ship, which means that when there were truck coming, the truck came and put all the sheep in one of the big fences area. And then there was this one sheep. It was a female, and I know the name because I remember the name, called Jeannette. So they called Jeannette, and Jeannette would come and go inside the fence, and eventually they have no idea what was going on, but all the sheep will follow Jeannette. And so the sheep will follow Jeannette. And so when they closed La Villette, it's a small detail, which is probably no book and nothing, but we just know it because it's happened in my family. When they closed the La Villette, that sheep was very important. Nobody wanted to kill Jeannette because it's the sheep that was the leader of the sheep. And so they decided that the only person that could have Jeannette was my grandpa. So that's within this group of people, that was a big deal. So they gave Jeannette to my grandpa, and my grandpa had a little summer house in the country. And so this is where Jeannette ended their life in a peaceful area. She was only sheep there at my grandpa's. But that was for many years the leader. And so what happens is this crazy story that you may have a hard time making the connection. It's the story of life. The story of life, you have people that make decisions. You know, I'm going to help these people. I'm going to save them by stealing papers from the Gestapo and the Nazi. I'm going to risk my life and maybe die for helping a Jewish family escape. I'm going to do it one time. I'm going to do it 2 times. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it. Leadership is this, is you make decision to lead, to follow, to watch, to do nothing, to do something. And we all have this opportunity to be a leader. And being a leader is saying, you know what? Maybe I cannot change the whole world, but maybe I can change something. And my contribution is going to be that one thing, and that's going to be my leadership. So now bringing all of this back, because some of you may be totally lost. to business is the same thing. And suddenly you go, you know what? People should be drinking milk. Milk is bad because the way they're treating the cows, what they're doing with the milk. But the milk is, you should not have digestion problem. I'm going to find how you stop this issue of digestion problem. And I'm going to do research and I'm going to find the way and the solution. And then I will create a business that will help people. That was A2 Milk mission and vision. Help people drink milk and not have indigestion. Great, great leadership. So great that now it's a milk category. Wonderful. These people passed away and this is their legacy of their leadership. You could pick the milk, you could pick anything. It's everyone can have a legacy. So that's why I show you those sheep. Is leadership is a very important skills. So right now you have to all be leaders. There should be 26 leaders in this class, 26 people who have a personality, who have character, who have ideas, who are confident, who are doing research, who are coming up with their own belief, which is logical, reason, and sourced. That's what it is. So when you do business, you don't fantasize. You could fantasize, but then you need to give some evidence for your fantasy. It should not be just what you think. So now let's look at this question. What is consulting? What is business? What's accounting? What's marketing, production, finance, law, innovation, management? All of these are different functions within a business, okay? And so it is very important that you are aware of what they are. Last week, I told you about the different consulting firms that are huge, that you should be aware that they exist, that provide services to the business community. Small businesses don't know about them. Big businesses all know about them because they use them every day. So, do you have any questions or comments? You find this interesting?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. That's the idea. So I want you to see your role as a business person. I mean, you're not going to graduate nursing. If you're graduating nursing, do you know about what you're supposed to do? It's very clear. There's patients, they're sick, you're going to help them. You care, and you have skills in order to make people healthy. It's very simple. You're a business person, you know your role. Make money. No. Your role is also to help people. Your role is a role of leadership. So as a business person, it's almost like you are a research surgeon. It's not only you do surgery, but you tell people what's the next surgery and how to do it better next. So as a business person, you can have a huge responsibility if you embrace the concept of leadership by realizing that it's on you. Business people is what makes this world go around because they create wealth, economies, work, and satisfaction and all this. So it's a great responsibility, but you need to see that you have it all on your shoulder. So now, how much? So now I want more participation because this is very important. We need to break this with you participating. How much evidence, argument, sources, references should consultants give to clients to motivate or substantiate or back up their ideas? How much?
I would say as much as possible.
As much as possible. So that's the correct answer. No. As a professor, what's my position? When I speak to students, do I have to justify myself? A lot. No. It's when you're a professor, you have a very comfortable position. You have a role and you have a status. I'm a professor. Supposedly, I read the book before you. And I'm going to tell you what's in the book before you read. That's easy. You can
Would
always,
your purpose be like, I'm sorry, would it be like being a guide?
yeah, I'm a guide. But as a professor, I'm a guide that people don't question too much. You see? I have an instant authority because there's two roles. There's the student, they listen, maybe they ask comments, ask questions, give comments. And there's the professor, the one who is there and knows it all. So it's very comfortable. You don't get challenged by students very often. So maybe some people become professor because they want to feel this legitimacy, power, prestige, status, expertise, right? But now when you're a consultant, you paid hundreds of dollars an hour and you face the client. How much the client listen to you like a student? How often? Why do they and why they don't? What's the difference? What makes a difference, do you think?
I think they would listen because you're paying a lot of money for their
Okay, so
services.
yes.
I wouldn't say also they're desperate, but
yes.
They hired you for a reason.
Yeah, that's right. So if they're desperate, they may listen and not question and just put their head down and say yes to everything. The more they pay you. So the more they pay you, the less they ask questions. That's true. The other one is, it depends if the person paying you is in the room or not. So let's imagine you're PricewaterhouseCoopers. So they get paid thousands of dollars an hour, just an hour, okay? The person who pays, the CEO, the owner, is not in the room. Does anyone question anything that these people have to say? Not much. $1,000 an hour, they don't question. Okay. Now, the person who pays is in the room. She or he is in the room, okay? This person probably will question because they say, I'll pay you thousands of dollars. Let me ask you some questions. I don't want you to work for my money. I pay. Versus the other people are executives. They're not paying their salary employee. They may be vice president or directors, but they don't own the company. They're not paying, so they may not ask as much. What I'm telling you right now is not something I read in a book. It's because I lived it. I worked as a consultant where we were paid thousands of dollars an hour. Nobody asked questions. The owner walks in the room. She asks questions. Now, I also work for a small consulting firm that nobody knows. I make the presentation. I'm interrupted all the time because they don't pay that much and the company is not super famous. I'm the same person giving the same services. I get interrupted all the time. Okay. Now, if I'm a consultant, do I tell them that I'm also a professor?
I don't think it would help your case.
No, it goes against me. It goes against me. So when I consult, I do consulting. I stop at the MBA that I got. I don't tell them I have a PhD. I don't tell them that I'm a professor. I don't tell them that I do research and publish in the most prestigious journal. I don't tell them that I won best researcher in one of the best researcher of the past 10 years in 2007, like the most prestigious reward. I don't tell them that. It goes against me. Why? Image. Stereotype. If you're a man, you get less interrupted. If you're an older person, you get less interrupted. The more they pay you, the less they interrupt you. The bigger your consulting firm, the less they interrupt you. If they know that you're a professor, they're going to think, they're going to challenge you. It's almost like a joke. Here's so-and-so, the consultant presenting, and also professor. Oh, professor, so he's going to talk like a professor. No, I'm not a student here. When I was a student, I used to close my mouth. Now I'm going to make this person look like a joke. asking questions and all that, making them look like very academic, not practical. They do this all the time. I know it well. I've been a consultant for 30 years. So I don't say it. It goes against me. Now, when I'm an academic, do I tell people that I'm a practitioner consultant? Not often either. Because you know what they think? The academic, if I tell them that I also do consulting, is they think that I don't know in details the formula, the research formula. Remember the complicated research formula that if you learn them the day after you forget them? Because they only do academic research and they know the formula from A to Z. And when you become a practitioner, you have a different perspective on those formula because you have to be practical, because you're not publishing in journals that are read by a very minority of people. You making practical recommendation, and therefore the formula sometimes are not practical. And therefore the academics don't, for the most part, don't like to talk to consultants. And the consultants, for the most part, don't like to talk to academics. It's like water and oil. So now you're going, Professor, you're telling all that, but that's sort of confidential stuff that you're not worried to tell that to a bunch of students? No, you're consultant right now. Why do I tell you that? Ooh, I get it. You're telling us that because we are young, wet behind the ears, and they know that. Of course they know. We're from Northridge. It's not Harvard. They're not paying us. Oh, crap, Professor. You're breaking our heart. We're sort of academic. So we've got everything against us, from a legitimacy, power, prestige, and expertise. Wow, this professor is amazing. He's telling us stuff that I never thought. This is, I have to sort of I have to turn on my brain in order to listen to this guy. Otherwise, I misfire, I lose it. Yes, exactly. So now the question is, so what are you recommending we do? So what do you think I'm going to recommend you do? Not to look too young.
Oh, I was going to say good old reliable research.
Exactly. So that's, you see, Jack is my joker. It's like when he comes here and that's it. He said it before. He said it now. You want me to go back to this? You want me to go back to this? It's leadership and research. So you're going to have to be, one, very confident. Two, walk the walk. So dress for the presentation. I will give you a background, a Wells Fargo background when you present, okay? So you have your own Wells Fargo background. You look like you're a consultant. You don't want to look like you're a student. You speak with confidence. And more important, that's what Jack said, you're going to have so much research that these people are going to go, oh my God. Like, I think I got whipped by these people because they had so much research, right? So would it be obnoxious to start all our sentences with the words based on our research? Every sentence starts with the words based on our research. That's obnoxious, but I like it. Could we do that? Do that. Wow, okay. Man, that's interesting. Can we call the client guys? You guys this, and you guys, and you guys. Should you call the client you guys? Oh, did you call the client you guys last time? You guys have looked at making strawberry flavor. Did you guys start the company thinking about selling in America? Guys, Now, if you look at the video, you will see that every student that talk to the client call them guys, you guys. That doesn't look good. You have to imagine that if these people paying you $1,000 an hour, you don't call them you guys. It doesn't work. So it's not just the content, it's the form, but then you need to work on the content. It has to be both. In order to compensate for stereotypes. Are there stereotypes? Do we live in a world of stereotypes? Oh yeah, lots of stereotypes. So right now, what I need to explain is you are in a position where you have the legitimacy, the power, the prestige, and the expertise. You are the consultant. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where the stereotypes are working against you, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so I don't see anybody yet. Hopefully, it's not like I'm not seeing you because you're bored. Hopefully, there's another reason for this. So let's look at some examples. Hardcore, we look at the Forbidden Band, and then Matters very quick. So hardcore, let me open the information on hardcore. Share the screen, hardcore. So this client came as amazing musician. So William Ekwe, when he came, he was in his 40s. And for the past 25 years, he had been a musician. And for 20 years, a professional musician in band where he was touring in the world. And people that make very big money, celebrity. So he was playing instruments. He was an instrumental in the band for famous people. But when he came to America, he decided to totally change himself. William Ekwe became Will Diesel, and he created the band Hardcore. So I can go back. Here's William. Here's Will. Very different person, a very different look. His spouse is Maiwen Ekwe, and she is one of the most famous harp player in the world. Okay. They essentially came both in America to change their life and change the fact that they were into classical music and they wanted to go more in rock and pop music. But when they came to America, they had to find a job because she's such a famous harp player. She came to Los Angeles because one of the things that you have in Los Angeles that I didn't know, but the very, very, very rich people, I'm talking billionaires. Billionaires, what do they have? They have many different houses. The smallest house that they have is 10,000 square feet. They don't have one swimming pool, but they have 3 swimming pools. They have an 18-car garage and all these things. But another thing that they do is they make their kids play harp. So playing harp is a hobby of billionaire kids. I didn't know this, but it's very common among billionaires that you get your kids to play harp. Okay, so she came to LA and she's essentially going from house to house in Beverly Hills teaching the billionaire kids. So that's great. But that's not what she wants to do. She wants to do is with her husband create a rock and pop band. And now she's not May Gwen Ekwe, but she's Gwen May, and she has an electronic harp. Back when we did the project with her, there was only 2 people with an electronic harp, not 25 and so forth, maybe like it is right now. And that harp was made by the #1 harp maker in the world just for her. And it was a prototype. And so she was really much very new. So what happens is with the students, we did research. I just spare you the research, looking for opportunities. I think this was what Miranda said, the most important opportunities is very true. So when the first thing you do is research and the biggest focus is opportunities. That's very true. And so we look for opportunities for them And in one of the interview, we found, you can see them left on the right, it's a big difference, the before and after. We found that they, deep inside them, they like cartoons. They like Marvel comics. You know, Hulk and Spider-Man and Batman and all of this stuff. And then we went like, wow, that explains their look, their new look, because they sort of doing what they always wanted. You can imagine them before, they were very, very together, very contained, doing what is expected from them, you know, playing the saxophone, playing the harp and all this. And now they are sort of over 40 years old, decided to live their real life, doing the music, doing what they always dreamed, you know, and they almost became a cartoon character. So suddenly the student said, you know, there is a style of cartoon. It's a Japanese style of cartoon. It's called, what is it called actually? Manga, whatever the name is. Can someone remind me what it's called? I forgot. Manga. Comes from Japan. And there's at least 5 people here who are very big fans of those Japanese cartoon, and it's called manga or whatever.
Like anime type of?
Anime, yeah. Yeah, it's called anime. But anime is the American word. They have a Japanese name for it. But let's call it anime. It's called anime.
I think they said in the chat it's manga, I think.
Yeah, manga, exactly. Thank you for helping me in the chat. So manga. So manga is the name Japanese, and anime is the English American name. It's the same thing. So then we found that the manga world had a huge quantity of fans. This was a fast growing type of cartoon, and people liking it. But there was no celebrity musician in the manga world. And whatever music that was in the manga became big within the people following this. A little bit like I found with my kids, and they call it meme. So my kids go like you do, I suppose, on Instagram and TikTok, and then there's some people that make music in there, and the music becomes famous in there before it becomes famous on the radio. And then you hear it on the radio, and I go, oh, never heard that. And they say, oh, that's a famous one as a meme, blah, blah, blah. So the main guy is the same. And we did this before TikTok was famous. So we did this, that was maybe 6 years ago. And we told them, with the students, we did research, and we found that their style of music was very hard to sell. It's very specific type of music, the sound of the harp and all this. It's not for everyone's taste to buy CD of this or buy MP3 music or download and all that. So they were having a hard time. But when you took this music and applied it with a manga, it looked fantastic. So the students created they created them as a manga anime character. First thing that was very important. And also what they did is they created the actual music over, they put their music over. So I'm going to show it to you now. So what happens is, that's what I'm trying to say, is you can't say, oh, they should do manga music. Like, I'm a consultant, let's say you're the client, and this is the presentation, and I say, that's it, we found what you need to do. You need to do manga music. And then you say, why? And then I respond by saying, well, that was my idea. When would that work? That would work if I'm a consultant that you pay $1,000 an hour. I'm a celebrity consultant that everybody loves, and I have no time, and I don't need to justify myself. I'm a professor speaking to students, and students will take it as it is. But in 99% of the situation is you have to justify yourself. So their justification was, well, when we talked and did interviews with you, we found that you like manga, and that was actually one of your favorite things. 2 is we found that you look like a manga character, and we created the manga character. Here's the picture. And then they went like, oh, that's interesting. We never thought of that, but that makes sense. And then the manga is 25% up every year versus the rock and roll is minus 5% every year. I mean, do you want to be a late comer in a market that is decreasing, or do you want to be a newcomer in a market that is increasing? And the music fits perfectly. Let us show you how. So when the students showed this video at the end to explain what they were talking about, what do you think was the reaction of the client? The client stood up. They had tears in their eyes and start clapping and saying, oh my God, we had no idea, but that's exactly what we want to do. You nailed it. That's not something we think we could do, or something maybe we should do, or maybe we're going to do it. We're going to think about it. They didn't say we're going to think about it. They say, you actually went inside us and you pulled out of us as artists exactly what we want to do. And I'm not kidding when they had tears in their eyes. I mean, they were essentially emotional, super emotional, because they discovered, we made them discover what they were meant to do. And that's what they did the day after and the months after. That's what they did, worked on this, on the manga and connecting with people in Japan. And also there was another thing that was kind of strange. And that was an added thing, is that the first market for manga is Japan. The second market for manga in the world, you know where it is? Per habitants, per capita and all that, is France. And these two people, you know where they're from? They're from France. So it was perfect for them. The third is America. And it was perfect for them because they had all legitimacy. Being the French, the best legitimacy, I guess, would have been Japanese, you could have said, you know, but they were French and all this. So the combination was perfect. So, you know, that was the Cinderella thing with the shoe. You know, you put the shoe and it works. And that's what you have to do with the client. And you have to justify it. It cannot be just a good idea, because sometimes the client don't see it. So for the Forbidden Band, what did we do? The Forbidden Band is by Misha Sigal. Misha Sigal won Best Sound Music, Oscar, Academy Award, Emmys. I mean, he won all the prizes for the music, best music and all this, famous movies and all of this. Eventually, at the end of his career, he wanted to do something that was very personal. So he's a Jewish person, and he wanted to make music where there would be different instruments coming from different religion or different culture. And he wanted to make the Forbidden Band, and that's why he wanted to call it this way, because he said it's the band that is made of the people that are not supposed to be together, but they are together, and it's all about peace, and it's all about music. And once they're together, there's no more taboo. It's all about just loving to be together and making music and all of this. So obviously it's something very personal to him, because of his family ancestry and the thing he wanted to do. He lives in Hollywood and all this, and he wants to bring this up. Believe it or not, this is a great concept. He's a famous celebrity. He has huge connection. I mean, connection at the highest level of Warner Brother and Sony and Netflix and all of this, you know, like first name basis with the CEO of this, but he couldn't do it. Very hard to do. So he came to us and said, what should I do? So we did research, and again, based on research, we told him, you have to connect.
Is the hot food put over there, or is it brought over here? Okay, thank you.
So we told him that he had to connect with a big non-profit organization and do it within some kind of political, cultural organization. The United Nations, Doctor Without Frontiers, the Red Cross, within some kind of governmental body, where they would take his message and they would produce him in the various places where they want him to be produced. I mean, you could imagine that it would be produced in Ukraine. You could imagine that it could be produced in many places, because you would hope, they want to bring peace and bring these people with this message and all this. All right. So For example, myself, I got really involved, and through my connections, I was able to talk to two of the most famous religious people in the United States. I won't say names or whatever, but very famous, most religious, on TV all the time and all that. It was not easy to get to these people. I got to these people, I talked to them. I was blown away by the fact that they didn't give a minute to this concept. Why they didn't give a minute to this concept of peace? It's like, I mean, you're the most famous person in that religion for leading people, the leader of this. Why are you not interested in this? And I was blown away by the fact that they didn't care for it because there was no money. I said, what do you mean? They said, no, I'm in charge of taking care of things that bring money. The more it brings money, the more I'm there. This doesn't bring money. This is going to cost me money. I'm going to have to produce them and all this. I said, yeah, but it's about peace and all that. You could plug it in one of your gig or whatever, the things that you're doing. No, 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 no. They need me. I don't need people that need me. I need to get people that bring me things. That's my role. It's like, wow, that was a discovery for me, you know, because I thought these people were in there for the people, but they were in there for bringing as much money as possible in order to pull it inside their own organization. Okay, great, fine. So we couldn't find it. So we wrote to him a plan where he had to do steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, in order to start working with a big organization like the Red Cross or whatever, which have billions of dollars, you know, of marketing money, because they need to market themselves in order to get donation. And the more donation they get, the more they can get more help. All right. Mattis was another artist. One of the singer actually for Mattis is a CSUN student. So he came to us because he actually won with his band, best band, I think it was of 2019, 2019 Los Angeles best band of young artists. So they got a prize, they got a sponsor of money, $20,000, $25,000. And they came to us and say, how do we market ourselves for the next 5 years? And so we looked at them and we found that they had a very unique style. And so they had a very unique style, and I want to show it to you before. So I'm going to show you a video clip that we saw inspired them and they inspired us. What you see with Mattis is that they had a style of music, unfortunately, that is not growing as a music genre. It's stagnant or decreasing. People are not into rock, or when they are within the classics, you know, the Rolling Stones, and they keep listening to this. But the new band is very, very difficult. So we struggled with the students to find opportunities, and we did research, and the students really had a hard time and panicked a lot. They were panicking because they couldn't find a direction, until we start thinking about the way they dress, the type of music, and all the things that they did. And there was a lot of sort of a classic vintage, a lot of vintage feeling. And so when we looked at vintage, is then we found that fashion from a vintage perspective is very common, fast growing, and people like nostalgia fashion and nostalgia clothing and all this. So then we started reviewing all the companies that were growing, doing nostalgia clothing and fashion and vintage. And we found there was a lot of them. And then we looked at them and looked at the one that seemed to have the biggest resources, and looked at their social media, and we found that they had a team managing the social media, but their social media was, even though they put a lot of information, it was not being looked at very much because the content was sort of boring. So how many times they post? 3 times a day? How many days? 7 days a week? How much? But boring content. So what we found is that Mattis' marketing budget was $500 a year. Their social media was really bad because they didn't have the resources to work on it. And maybe they could stretch their budget to $1,000, but still $1,000 a year is nothing. So the best thing they could do at the beginning in order to grow is to piggyback on someone else's resources by giving their music, syncing their music, creating music, because they're very talented. I mean, that was just one of the songs on one of the video. And they were really good at making videos, very good at making songs for the videos, very prolific. But they needed someone to be sort of the vessel, a vessel to carry the information. So we contacted some of those vintage fashion clothing company, and we reviewed all of them, and we found that they would be delighted to get someone like this for not so much money. So it was not, let's make some money from collaborating with those vintage companies, but it's to be seen, to be heard, and to be blasted all over the place. And it's to gain from the collaboration from both parties. So it was a benefit. And also, when the vintage fashion clothing company actually saw their videos, right away they looked at the videos and say, oh yeah, that's us, that works with us. So the students, and that's usually a strength from the students. And at CSUN, you don't realize, but you have a lot of good skills at CSUN. I guess it's because of your family culture, the area, everybody's very fashion forward. And when I say that you need to be a ghost over the world, LA is a lot of things are starting from LA. So you live in the place, there's already a lot of things starting. So it's inside you, it's in your DNA. So the students were really good at picking the companies, making the match. And that's what I'm hoping. There's 6, 7 people in your team. There's got to be few people with the skills that are able to sense, understand what I'm saying, and do the research and guide each other. Okay, so that's another example. We did beats. So obviously beats is something that you all know. It's not as popular now that it was 5 years ago, but that was a project that we did in maybe 2011 or 2012. So because I do cognac, I have a lot of connections with the hip hop and rap industry. So I was connected to Dr. Dre, and Dr. Dre was telling me he was working on some headphones. And I say, hey, I could have my student work on it. He says, why not? And so I had the students work on beats by Dr. Dre. At the time, he had like 6 employees, and obviously now it's a multi-billion-dollar company, but it was not back then. And so we worked on beats, and we came up with a major disruptive idea that unfortunately Beats didn't carry. And the reason Beats didn't carry our idea is because with their single ID, with just Beats as it was, the company, was growing plus 25% every week. So they were not in a position where they were suddenly sort of stale and say, we need to reinvent ourselves, right? Which is more the situation of A2 Milk. It's like helping A2 Milk, I suppose, 6 or 7 years ago is a different ballgame than today. 6 or 7 years ago, how many competitors you have? None. So we would have been in a different driver's seat than we are today. So Beats, it was at the very beginning, and I can tell you the idea, which was really good, is Beats was created by Dr. Dre, which is obviously very famous for hip hop, but it was created with another gentleman who I forgot the name. There was 2 founders. And so the other founders is not famous for hip hop. He's actually famous for rock and country music. And so what we did is we created a beat for country music, because Beats was very successful because it had a special sound that was very good for rap and blah, blah, blah. And they pushed this to a point that everybody believed it, and everybody is what? Is a sheep. Remember the sheep? That's why I told you about the sheep. Is they're all a sheep, and they all wanted to have their beats. And so they saw the beats on the NBA player, they saw the beats on the other rap artists, and eventually everybody does what everybody does, like a sheep. And so that's what they were doing. And so when we told them about the country music, they thought it was great, but they never got to it because they were growing so fast. They even sold the company eventually. So that is something never happened. JD Power. So JD Power is the most famous consumer rating company in the world. They originally famous for rating cars, but they rate everything from airline to banks, and everything is rated by JD Power. So you may not know this, but Mr. JD Power, James David Power, was also teaching at CSUN at one time. And I was the co-teacher with James David Power. I was teaching consumer behavior. Obviously, consumer behavior, that's why this company is famous for. So the students had no idea. I don't think students totally understand what was going on, but they had the most famous person probably ever in history co-teaching. So I was just trying Vigneron with James David Power. It was a great class. I enjoyed it a lot. Eventually, I said to Mr. Power, the students at CSUN, they're amazing. Why don't we let me have a team and look at your company and give you some advice? And he said, for sure. Because remember when I told you, it's very difficult to convince big companies. But obviously here it was easier because it was a co-teacher. So it was a different class in the consulting class. And obviously we are looking at JD Power. Put yourself in my shoes. I'm going to tell the best consultant in the world, what they should do in their company? Come on, professor, you're a little bit crazy. Yeah, I didn't realize what I was putting myself into. How can you tell them what to do, the best consultant in the world? And I said to the student, don't worry about it. We'll do it. And it's funny, I had a team, all girls, just, 6 girls. And they were all honor students, very aggressive, love doing research type of people. And they got the project, and I worked with them on the project, and it was great. They never acted as students, never acted as students. They were 100% consultants. And we looked at everything about JD Power, and then we went and said, oh my God, their website is terrible. They got to do something about their website. They got to change their website. So then we asked them, who's your director of the website and all this? Oh, we don't have one. Oh, so who's in charge? Well, the people in marketing, now and then they do the website and all that. But we said, people don't read magazines anymore. They do the website. Again, this was in 2006, I think, so it's a while back. And so then we said, we need to do the website. So the students did the website. I think it's one of the projects that I will give you. And what the student did is I told them, and that's a small little details for you, but it's huge for JD Power, is JD Power is a quantitative research company, which means that they survey, usually it's a survey, it's a questionnaire, that they give to millions of people. And I said to the students, what you're going to do, because we don't have time anyway, but you're not going to say that because we don't have time, is you're going to do qualitative research, which is research by asking people questions, doing interviews. So that's the opposite of JD Power. JD Power doesn't do interview. JD Power does millions of surveys. This is two different philosophy. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. It's like man and woman, water and oil, the air and the earth. I mean, it's Adam and Eve. It's the opposites. When you do research, quantitative research is you believe in the power of the numbers. Versus when you do it and you do 5 interviews, the power of numbers is terrible. But sometimes in interviews, you can get more than 1 million questionnaires. I don't believe that. That's what JD Power said. I said to the students, you students, you nobodies, you just starters are going to show the king of the world of consumer research that you can do as good as they do, interviewing 10 people. So obviously when I told that the students, but they were amazing students. They got it. They were scared, right? But they did it. And you know what the end result is? 2 students got hired by JD Power in that team. And you know what they had? One became director of the internet website, and the other one became the assistant director of the internet website. The salary was 3 times their dream starting salary. And right now, the students are still at JD Power, and now they're vice president of JD Power. My student, 2006. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. This class is in your hand. You can do whatever you want. It's in your hand. Califia Farm, obviously, that's the one that I gave you the thing. And obviously, this was great because the student that did an amazing job was the students that came in my, so I did spring 2021 with Califia Farm in the class with everybody, 160 students. And there was one student that was really struggling in there and he didn't know why he was struggling. He came back and said, I want to take the BUS491 because I'm tired of struggling with this. I want to get to the bottom of it. It's bothering me. And then he took this class and then he kept drilling at it, but he already knew what he was doing. And at the end, it was 1 week before. 1 week before it was due. So you have to imagine this was like the 2nd of July. We had a group meeting and there he talked, he says, Professor, I think I have a new idea because I'm getting so frustrated, but I think I have something and you're going to be happy. He told me the idea and I said, it's fantastic. His idea, which was backed up by research, is he found there's a lot of people that want to drink almond milk, but they find it difficult to take the milk with them and to have all of this milk is they wish they could have it as a powder. So it's powder almond milk. And then he gave me all the use and all the interviews he did and all of this. That was the sources. That way you're not a student anymore, you're a researcher and you just bombard the clients with the sources. When we did the presentation, We did the presentation, and then at the end, we asked the marketing director of Califia Farm, again, another company that makes $2 billion just in the US, $2 billion. And she said, I'm blown away. This is fantastic. I love the idea, for example, of the powder. We never thought of this, and I can see we could definitely do that. I will bring it to the business. This student was so thrilled because he says, man, I can't believe I was struggling so much. So like essentially 10 days, and I started in January. So that's to tell you there's time to digest, but you don't have that much time to digest. So you gotta look all over the place. And that's what he was doing, looking all over the place, thinking outside the box, getting data, but don't go crazy. You don't need a formula. You don't need thousands of surveys. It's just getting some information that you can back it up, okay? So I'm jumping a few slides. So every failed experiment is one step closer to success. If I tell you your draft is terrible, change this and change that and all that, do not take it personal. The first drafts are always pretty bad. Keep on going. Tune up, tune up, tune up. You are not being evaluated today. You're not evaluated next week. Only the quiz. I guess the quiz will be an evaluation in the middle. But you're not being evaluated. If you decide to do 2 drafts, that's a mistake. Do 12 drafts. Why? Because you're most likely to do better on your 13 drafts if you've done 12 than on your 3rd draft if you did 2. Do not look for perfection, just look for momentum. Momentum and making progress is more important than achieving perfection every time we meet. There's nothing wrong. To get something you never had, you need to do something you never did. So that's also the right attitude. Is trying to do the same thing won't reinvent. Reinventing meaning that you're going to have to be disruptive. Cultivate the mind of disruption. The mind of disruption is a mind that is solution driven, problem solving. What are the problems? Solve the problems with new ways. New ways show leadership. Show leadership by doing something different. Okay? It's easier to learn how to succeed than to learn how to fail. That's another one I like. Is failing is part of the process to be on trajectory to success. So failing should not be something that pulls you down. Failing should be something that allows you to perfect to the next stages. People that are afraid of failing are not going to be good business people. Should not be afraid. If I ask you, who is the most successful alumni of CSUN? The most successful in name recognition, money, success, all of that. Never the students can tell me. Never. 20 years I've been here, nobody knows. There's one person that is the most successful. He says he has hundreds of billions of dollars. I don't know if it's true, but he has billions of dollars. He's extremely successful. And if you eventually, because I told you, you will look, you'll find he has thousands of videos on YouTube with hundreds of millions of views, more than 100 millions of views. Does he associate himself with CSUN? A little bit. That's why he's not going to find him very fast, because he's graduated from CSUN, but he barely talks about CSUN. And CSUN barely talks about him. He is quite abrasive. He speaks with a tough, now he's in his 70s and all of this, but what he says, if you pass, he used bad language in his video, but if you pass the bad language and you listen to his message is very honest. And this one, it's easier to learn how to succeed than to learn how to fail. If he was hearing me saying that and he would say, "You professor from CSUN, I like you," I'm sure he'd say that, because that's so important. And he says, learn how to fail. That way you can learn how to succeed. But success is not as interesting as failure. You don't learn much from successes. I can't say that you learn nothing from successes, but you don't learn that much. From failing, if you pay attention, you can learn a lot. So now you're going to think, man, is this professor a little bit sadomasochist because he's telling us failure is more interesting I'm not sadomasochist. I'm just training you not to be a procrastinator. I'm training you not to think that there's anything that is wrong. And you should not be holding. What is wrong is to show no leadership, to show no initiative. Initiative is very important, and you should not be judged for your initiatives. You don't want to be saying crazy things all the time that you want. So what is marketing? Marketing is delivering satisfaction and long-term and being profitable. Can you create things? Can you make people buy things? No, you can't. Things all exist, and you just create wants. So what does that mean? Well, you know, when we did, I think I mentioned last week at the interview, when we did a Red Bull, and we told Red Bull that they should have a bigger bottle, and Red Bull says, no way, we'll never do that. Eventually they did it, and not only that, but they did the green Red Bull, and the, you know, it's going to be a blue Red Bull, it's going to be, who knows? So you have to keep being open-minded, because you don't create needs, is you create wants. You create wants for Red Bull, you create wants for the green Red Bull, you create wants. People, what they have is thirst. And people, what they have is perception and beliefs. So how would that materialize with the A2 milk? Well, is it possible that you drink milk and you go, oh, I heard that milk hurt your stomach, then you hurt your stomach and you go, oh, that must be the milk. But it's not even the milk, it's something else, right? And that suddenly you tell them, oh, A2 milk doesn't hurt your stomach, and then they drink it and they go, oh, you know, it doesn't hurt my stomach. And there's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Is the more they think A2 milk doesn't hurt the stomach, the more it doesn't hurt the stomach, because they're setting themselves up to think that it doesn't hurt the stomach. It's possible. I don't know, right? This I don't know. I'm not a biochemist, you know, a physician or whatever. It's possible. But the reality is you want people to get a problem solved. So if the problem to be solved is to so it's indigestion, that's really good. Maybe there's other problem that in digestion that you find when you interview people. So maybe you find that there's a taste, but you know, the taste, she's already talked about it. It's very difficult, because I know from having done many projects that has to do with beverages, and also, you know, I sell cognac and all this. So in America, the taste is, people perception of taste is the less you taste, the better. The less you taste, the better. And if people like to taste one thing, oftentimes it's sweet. So I'm going to make make myself sound bad to you, because I'm a dirty Frenchman, I guess. But it's not, the taste in America is not very sophisticated most of the time. So when it comes to milk, I would imagine that the best taste is as neutral as possible. And therefore, beyond that, what's neutral is sweet. Beyond that is a familiar taste, chocolate. But that's essentially what you have to play with. And that's why when they said we're going to work on the taste campaign, and we all were so sure that this was going to work because our taste is so good. And when we do blind taste, people absolutely love it and all that. You know what she said? She said they had to give up on it because it didn't bring anything back. It was nothing constructive about it. So then that tells you what I would have anticipated. I would have loved the concept. Like if you came up with the concept is we're going to do a tasting, because when we taste it and everybody tastes it, loves it, we're going to go for the taste. I would have said that sounds good. But man, I don't trust people when it comes to that. So that would have been my gut feeling. And when she said it, I was like, yes, bingo, I would have guessed that. So you can't do much with the taste. So you have to keep searching. See, I can't do the brainstorming with you because we're going to do it together. But we're going to do it because you're going to bring the discussion to me. You're going to take initiatives and have leadership and said, we researched this, we thought that was crazy, but we researched that, found nothing. We researched this and found something else. And then you're going to tell me, Professor, is it possible that sometimes we find what we really need to find by mistake, by coincidence? And then I'm going to give you an answer that you're not going to like, which is, I'm afraid that happens very often. And then you're going to hate it. It says, oh my God, so how do we get lucky? The more you research, the more lucky you're going to get a coincidence. The less you research, the less likely you're going to get a coincidence. It's like, oh. So in 3 weeks, there's going to be some people frustrated saying, you know, we're still not finding anything of substance. You know, the issue of substance. So then you're going to say, oh, we found that they could collaborate with Ghirardelli chocolates or whatever. It's like, well, they could, but you know, this is a small thing. We're not going to bring these people something small like that. It needs to be a big thing, right? So, so what do is you look in the environment, you look for changes. Why? Because you want to create some competitive sustainability, strategic, and differentiation. Where do you look in the environment? In the environment, you look inside the micro and the macro environment. So the micro is the red. So no, the macro with an A, macro, is the red, and the micro, like a microphone, like is the gray. All of these are the area where you're going to look at. Why do you look in these? You look in these because you want to be able to create what's called the pesant or the SWOT. So in the environment, you have what's away from the company, so the macro environment, just as the natural change, technical change, political change, cultural change, demographic, economic. So here's the demographic that last week we had a little thing going on. It's one of the components, it's important. Economic, obviously nowadays, it's very important when you sell expensive milk, is you need to see if there is room for making it more or less expensive and all that. Cultural, it's oftentimes the biggest one because it's the trends, how people think, what do they want. And then the micro with I, micro, it's essentially your customers is the most important, your competitors, the company and the strengths and weaknesses you have, the public, which is the general people that are not the customers or not the suppliers. They are other potential stakeholders. And then the intermediaries, people that you use in order to perform your work. So again, you need to go back and study this. This is something that you have to learn in management, in economics, in marketing. And this is the 101 of a consultant. A consultant research, where do they research? In the environment. So that's the thing. So you now start getting it that you're gonna have to do more research than you thought. 2, that in fact, why not? Because research is exciting if you like the subject. And 3, I don't want to be poor. In fact, I want to be comfortable. Therefore, I'm going to have to do research because I'm in business. I'm not a nurse. And therefore, I have to do research where? In the environment. So should I be very cognizant, aware of the environment and what's in there? Yes. Why? Because that's where you mine. So why would you want to be a business person and avoid understanding this map? This map is that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life till you get old and tired. So you want to know each one of these, and you don't want to know them just because they're going to be in quiz 1. So learning them for quiz 1 is a good reason, but it should not be the main reason. The main reason is that's what makes a difference between you and the person in the street. So what's the PEST? So the PEST is political, economical, social, technological. So again, you see when someone is a consultant, they do a PEST analysis or a PEST analysis. That's no brainer. That's the 101 of a consultant. You do that. That's what you got to do. If you're a business person, you're going to do that many times for the rest of your life. You want to learn them. It's not just a thing for a quiz. It's 101, basic. And you also do that because you want to eventually turn this into a SWOT analysis. So the SWOT analysis, it's also the 101. You cannot be a business person and learn the SWOT just for the sake of getting your degree. It's for the rest of your life. I want to continue talking about what businesses have done in order to be disruptive. You probably know about these shoes, Crocs. Do you know what was the foundation or the history behind the creation of this company? So the problem they're trying to solve is the founder found that sometimes with certain shoes, you end up smelling from the feet. And they were boating, and in the boat, they realized some of us were smelling from the feet. So they said, someone should come up with a shoe that where your feet don't smell. And where if your shoe fell in the water, it would float. And that would need to be a shoe that is simple to make, using maybe one type of material and with a simple design, and that the shoe would be comfortable. So it seems simple, but it's a lot of characteristics that altogether seems too good to be true. So these people came up with a shoe, the Crocs, and tried to solve all of these different problems. So looking at what are the problems people have and coming up with a solution is oftentimes the best way to be disruptive and to generate the just noticeable difference. So their J&D is people found that this was the shoe that solved all of these problems. Then what happened is people get used to the shoe and the business went down. And more recently, what they started doing is collaborations with other brands and other designers in order to create some more limited edition and new designs. So people would get excited about them again because they started to become a little boring because everything was sort of looking like what everybody knew. Okay, so let's look at now sort of the way you have to think in the long run. The way you think in long run, you're a little bit like this gentleman facing this board, where you sort of drafting in your head or drafting on a diagram or like a process map of all the things that you needs to happen. So I could use Vigneron to explain this. Vigneron was created by some students as well. They were not working for a client, but they came up with their own enterprise. And so their own enterprise was to create the service where people could get their own vinyl disc made for themselves. So first is vinyl disc. Who's using vinyl disc? I mean, hasn't that disappeared? And what the student found is that more and more people are buying vinyl discs. That vinyl disc came back. People are spending money on vinyl disc, much more so that they're spending money on downloading MP3s comparatively. And so they ask people, what would be the perfect vinyl? Well, the perfect vinyl disc would be a vinyl disc that would have the songs that I like what I could do with putting myself a listening list of songs that I build myself. I would like to do that with a vinyl. Unfortunately, the vinyl are fixed. Is you get usually the vinyl from a same artist or the same band, but not a mixture of bands. So then they said, yes, but maybe it's possible with technology. With technology, it's possible to create a peer-to-peer platform where people will go on the platform and will create wish lists. I wish I could get a vinyl with these songs, with these 3 songs on it, with these 6 songs on it. I wish I could create another vinyl with these authors and all this. And they create wish lists. When you have thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that create wish lists, it is possible that eventually there's enough people that have the same wish list to the point that you will be able to aggregate all the wish lists and be able to define that, strangely enough, there is 75,000 people that their wish list was those 5 artists' songs. And so therefore we could create a vinyl for 75,000 people. They would get exactly what they want. So it's essentially using technology and peer-to-peer and the concept of pledging, where people will just create wish lists. And the day there's enough of the same wish list, then the product can be created. So when you propose this to a client, even though that's a good idea and everybody can visualize it, the best thing you can do to reinforce your point is use what I call case study. And the best case study are doesn't have to be similar products, but where this has already been done. So maybe you do this for clothing. It's like a clothing company is they create all kinds of 16 designs, and people can take this design and mix them. And once there's enough people that have came up with the same, liking the same thing, then we'll produce it. So if you find maybe it's been done for a cocktail, maybe it's been done for a movie, maybe it's been done for something else. Then you take that method used in a different industry, then you borrow the method, and then you put it in your industry. So this is what people did for the Valley Hive. For the Valley Hive, I told the students, be careful. The client has been doing this for 30 years. Be careful. The client does not expect that a bunch of students can come up with something disruptive. Therefore, you don't want to sell the disruption too quick. You're going to have to prepare the client and ease the client and explain how you got to that conclusion. So to do that, you're going to have to give examples. And that's why if you look at the Valley Hive, there's lots of examples that have nothing to do with owning. It has to do with beer, it has to do with whiskey, it has to do with cigarettes, it has to do with water, mineral water, or whatever. And then you borrow what these people did in this industry and you explain it in your industry. In fact, oftentimes, if I had to give you a set, 95% of the time, that is the best method to convince the client because it has nothing to do with you and your ideas. You don't want to tell the client, I'm a genius and I know what you need to do. That doesn't work. So what you do is you use comparisons of what other people did in other industry and how it got them to be successful. And sometimes it's not as clear as saying they were selling cigarettes and then they sell flavored cigarettes and then they became successful. They were selling water and then they sold flavored water and they became successful. Sometimes it's a little bit more of what I call a Frankenstein, which means it's not like a big idea used in one industry that you use in your ideas, but it's multiple ideas from multiple industries. And that's like this patchwork that you create. You know, like a patchwork where you see there's a sheet. It's not made of one piece of material. It's made of multiple pieces of material of multiple colors and multiple shapes and so forth. And then it creates a design where it's very busy. But that makes the sheet. And so in your situation, sometimes, and that's easier, it's one idea from one industry that you're going to take and that's it. And that's a disruption. But most of the time, it's a patchwork of ideas. So to defend your ideas before defending it in the context of A2 Milk company is you have to defend it on how these were great ideas in their original context and how this original context or the portion of this original context is equivalent to the situation that you're facing with A2 Milk. So what I'm saying right now is very important. I will ask you to do that is to use references, sources, conjectures, similar situation that gives us the confidence, because at the end is, remember, the confidence comes from you being paid a lot and you're not, the confidence from you being a famous, a very famous consultant and you're not, right? And so therefore you have to get the confidence from something else. And the confidence is it has been done before. And it was successful before. And this is the same situation. So we think it's going to work. So that's what you're going to be doing for the next months, pretty much, is moving all kinds of concepts and finding which one is really necessary, which order do they go. And this is called a business plan. Are you going to do a business plan for them? No. Because what's a business plan? A business plan is a plan of which does not exist in itself, which is made of multiple plans. So is there such a thing as a business plan? Well, there is a combination of executive summary, operational plan, marketing plan, legal plan, HR plan, accounting, production, and timeline plan. If you combine all of these and you put them in one document, the first page is going to be called business plan. Oh, so a business plan does not exist in itself. It's just the title of the first page when you combine all of these. Exactly. Gee, I asked a lot of people, they didn't know. Or they told me a business plan is what you want to do with the business in terms of budgets and who you sell it to and all this. Gee, that sounds like a marketing plan. People don't know. Even if you go to Wikipedia, Wikipedia doesn't know. It's complicated. So what I'm telling you here, that's the simplest definition you can find. And it takes you a long time on the internet to figure out this. A great challenge of life is knowing enough to think you're right, but not knowing enough to know that you're wrong. The idea is people, the minute that they are too confident, that's when they start to be wrong. Because knowledge only allows you to know what you don't know. And therefore, you get knowledge, and more knowledge increase your confidence. But your confidence is only based on the amount of knowledge that you have. But people oftentimes use knowledge in order, the minute, and that's a big problem. It's like, ask people their opinion about solar power, like solar panels. Everybody has an opinion. How much people know about solar panels? Not much. They don't know much, but they have an opinion. How much people have an opinion on what happened with COVID? But they don't really know that much. How much people know about the war in Ukraine? They don't know that much. People oftentimes remember the title of the article, and that's it. The sound bites. Same thing with A2 milk. How much people know about A2 milk? Megan Dish told us last week that based on their research, on all the research, people read nothing on the bottle, almost nothing. And if they say that they are experts, they read best case scenario, 2 things on the bottle, right? So there's a lot of experts that believe they're experts because they know very few things. Who knows how much they should? Not many people. So what you do is you go to your environment, you do your research, you put it into the PEST, into the SWOT, and you create a set of opportunities. The opportunities cannot be what you're going to do. Your opportunities, they have to be what the changes that you see in the environment is. Okay. So people have needs, people have wants, and that's what you try to work on. What are their needs? When do they drink milk? What do they drink milk with? When do they eat protein in general? Where do they find protein? What do they know about protein? People that know the truth about protein must be 1%. People think that they know about the protein must be 50%. Should you go, and that's a difficult ethical question. Should you go in the direction of what's really important about protein? Or should you go in the direction of what people think is important about protein? Which direction should you go? Again, I repeat the question. Should you go?
Professor, shouldn't you focus on what the consumer wants rather than what you want?
So no, but this is what you want as a company.
Mm-hmm.
There is what they think they want.
Mm-hmm.
And there is what they should really want. It's like sugar. People should not drink sugar. Good. What people think. They think that they can drink sugar as long as it's fructose. That's what they believe. So the truth, should you drink sugar? 0. Like the doctor or the experts, the geeky guy with the thick glasses, spends the day, nutritionist, triple researcher and all that. They're doctor of everything. You should not drink sugar. What the consumer think. You should not drink sugar unless it's fructose and what the company wants. The company wants to sell them a lot of sugar because they have a lot of sugar in stock. So that's what they want. They don't want to keep that. They need to sell it. There's 3 different directions that pulls. Which direction should you go to? And what I'm going to tell you, it's almost like a nasty thing because the reality is you should try to bring people towards the truth. But if you do that, you probably fail. You probably go bankrupt. Most of the time, the rule of thumb is you do, again, it's leadership, is you tell the people, you give the people what the people want. That's the rule of thumb. Give the people what the people want. Number one. Number two, but if what they want is not really good for them, and you know that, should you do it? And that's where you can try to move the cursor. But you can't make them stop, right? You can't make them stop doing something that is not good and turn them into doing something is very good. When I say can't, it's 99% of the time you cannot. It is very difficult to change people's bad habits. What you can do is you can sort of, make it less bad. And next time, less and less bad, and less and less bad, and less and less bad, right? But it's very difficult to change everything. So I don't know if I make myself understood. It's possible also I get misinterpreted as being a dirty person by thinking that way. But it's if you look at the world around you, there's a lot of fake pretending to be real. And I'm not saying to be fake to pretend to be real. I think what you can do best is to be real, and a real, like, take them closer to the real. But the real is oftentimes not the one that wins. I mean, Red Bull doesn't do anything, and yet there's millions of people every day that buys it. There's documentary that shows that eating fast food every day will eventually reduce your longevity, and you will get some terrible disease faster. Those documentary, people watch them, maybe for 1 or 2 days, they stop eating fast food, and then they go back to eating fast food. So what I'm trying to tell you is not based on a religious belief, which is that you should always help people. It's more of you have to be conscious that people oftentimes revert to bad. So you can only try to get them within the good, but the good perfect and true perfect is very difficult. You do your share, in other words, I want to say, and you don't do the bad. I think that's sort of the leadership. So if you were to do A2 milk, you want to look for some solutions that are really positive, that are going towards positive. And it's step by step where positive is becoming more unpositive. And every time your new iteration is more positive than the previous. And the next one is even more positive and even more positive and even more positive, right? But going straight to what's perfect and what's like the perfect balance for the universe is very difficult. I mean, otherwise we'll have to go back to the time where America was owned by the Native Americans. And maybe there was perfection. And maybe there was balance, maybe. But everything that happens after becomes a distortion of the perfection and just became more commercial, capitalistic, and so it's you have to see this. You're within this context, and so here you're going to be dealing with something that's made by an animal, and therefore you can think about so that's why they created almond milk, because when you sell it, it's like zero emission. How much pollution you get from an electric car? A lot of pollution. Do you get more pollution from an electric car than a gas car? I mean, it's possible that you get more pollution from an electric car than a gas car. Which one is zero emission? The electric car. So if you were to market that, you're not going to market it as zero pollution, because you're going to lose. You're more pollution. So you market it from a perspective which is marketable and is translated by people as if it's zero pollution. But you didn't say zero pollution. Yeah, but that's what they hear. So say it, because you're in the business of selling electric cars. So you say zero emission. That way they go for the interpretation. Let them interpret. You're in the business of selling electric car. What they interpret is their problem. But you already know that that's how they're going to interpret it. I know, but am I guilty of knowing that they misinterpret it and it's in my favor? No. So marketing and business, in a way, it's not fair the way you're playing, because you know more about what is going on that they know. And at the end of this project, you will know more about milk that you knew a month ago because you put yourself into it. Do you see what I'm saying? So, pretty much everybody knows this brand. This brand was a brand that we did 6 years ago, I think. So we worked for Ferrero is the company. And so we focused on this because there are many different products. I mean, there are Kinder Bueno and Kinder Surprise, Tic Tac. They have many different products. Tic Tac, I'm not sure anymore. Maybe not Tic Tac, but so, and they have Nutella. So we looked at Nutella, and when we did this project with the students, we were blown away by this. Personally, I'm crazy about Nutella, and my kids are even more crazy than me. And most people that like Nutella are crazy about Nutella. But this is based on just eating Nutella. You know, here's some Nutella, here's some bread. What do? I mean, you put too much Nutella. That's what everybody does. You know, people that eat Nutella, they don't eat Nutella. They eat too much Nutella. There's no such a thing as eating Nutella. It's too much. So how much Nutella did I eat before this project? Too much. Then I did the project. How much Nutella do I eat since I did the project? None. I went from too much to 0. How come? Well, I was basing it on my pleasure. Based on my pleasure, it's not, I don't want a jar, I want 10 jars. Delicious. But once I found out what was inside, but that was only one of the problems. Because there's a second problem, which is the ecological problem that the palm oil, and you can see there's a lot of palm oil. The palm oil comes from palms, and most of the palms come from Malaysia and Indonesia. And so then when we looked at this palm oil, we found that there was a huge ecological problem in these countries due to the over harvesting of palm oil. And most of these went to make products that used a lot of palm oil. And since Nutella used a lot of palm oil, the more Nutella you eat, the more you are part of the issue that happens in Indonesia, Malaysia. But I don't even know someone from Malaysia. Why do I care? You could say, I'm not saying you're saying that, but you could say, Malaysia is far away. And I don't see the problem. If I don't see it, it sort of doesn't exist. Yeah, but then if you do the research and then you face the data, then it's a different story. You can't deny what the reality. So then with the students, we had a very difficult situation dealing with this because we were in a situation where essentially we had to think about a better way. So we thought of better ways. And, you know, and eventually I don't want to discuss more about this, but I mean, Nutella is doing what they want to do, but we found that eventually now there's companies that actually make, so it's called a spread, a chocolate hazelnut spread without using palm oil. And that's actually their point of differentiation. No palm oil. And that's how they sell their hazelnut and chocolate spread. So then you go, okay, but there's no palm oil. It's not going to be that good. Then you taste it and you go, oh, it tastes good. And the next thing is, okay, so if it tastes good, what is the nasty thing that they added in order to replace it with something maybe worse? Worse from a health perspective, worse from an ecological perspective, or whatever, you know. And so you see that the business we live in is a constantly rotating discovery of worse, could be worse, it could be even worse than worse, right? So is that an opportunity? That, to me, this huge amount of palm oil is an opportunity. But when does it become a big, huge, crazy opportunity, do you think? That there's so much palm oil in there? When is this opportunity becomes huge? When when is there alarm that rings?
Is it because consumers are looking for a product that doesn't have palm oil?
Exactly. Exactly. Once they start figuring out, it's like me before, 1 jar a week, me after 0 jar a week. See what I'm saying? I mean, it's kind of sad, but that's what happened to, because I did this with a class of 160 people. I ruined the life of 160 people, right? But if it's not my fault, I really thought it was a delicious product that had so much more potential. But then we found solutions and all this, and but it's a very big company. I was quite amazed by. I mean, this company was what, $20 billion or something. I mean, it's gigantic, selling chocolate and hazelnut spread mostly. It's just amazing. Here's another interesting story of someone that made a disruption. Is Union Wine Co. Underwood. So Underwood Wine in 2005, 2013, they were selling wine like this. Anything special about this wine that you can see? No. The bottle is the usual bottle. The label is sort of very modern, you could say. It's not traditional, that's for sure. The closure is not traditional. It's a screw top. So normally what do people say when they see this? It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look great. It certainly looks cheap. This is not going to be expensive. That's what people say. Okay, great. Were they successful from 2005 to 2013? You think? No, not successful. Why? Because there's nothing special. What is the just noticeable difference? None. What's the opportunity? None. Well, no, people are buying more wine, California wine, and Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris. Pinot Noir, lots of business. Rosé has exploded. The consumption of rosé in the United States past 10 years, multiplied by 10. So I guess that's some opportunity, but they didn't get the benefit. Nothing. They're struggling to the point that they had to close door. As a last decision, a leadership decision, they say, we have no more money, but we're going to throw one last party. So they threw one last event, a tasting event in the nicest place they could afford and all this. And you know what happened? Something bad happened. The people that owned the location said, you cannot have glass, no glass. And then they say, how are we going to do a wine tasting with no glass? We're screwed. And then someone said, you know what? When things go bad, you get tough and you make it happen. We're going to put the wine in aluminum can, like soda. So that's what they did. They put them in can. They had the event. At the event, some people were like, this is crazy. I'm not drinking wine in an aluminum can like a Coke. I won't do that. And some people say, oh, let's taste it. Oh, the wine is good. Hey, John, what a great idea to put it in a can. And then John said, oh, yeah, thank you. Well, that was because of the insurance and the location. They didn't want us to have glass, but I'm not going to tell them that. And then everybody started waving and saying, what a great idea to put it inside a can. What a great idea to put it inside a can. After the event, the people that own the business said, she's funny. Everybody started saying that the can was a good idea. We only did that because we didn't have a choice. And then someone said, hey, what if we're selling the wine in a can? Union Wine Co., first company to sell wine in a can, overnight turned $1 billion sales. Biggest seller of canned wine in the world. And now there is thousands of companies that sells wine in a can. This is the A2 milk of wine in a can. They created it by mistake because they were pissed off of the insurance company, could not have glass. And they thought of this just as the plan B. Isn't that an amazing story? When you hear that, you go, wow, sometimes you got to get lucky. But my question to them is, okay, when you were selling this, how much research were you doing on STP? None. How much research were you doing on opportunities in your environment? You know, technology, consumer trend? None. How much research were you doing on just noticeable difference? None. No wonder you're going to fail. How are you? Only a miracle was going to save you. And that's what happened. It was a miracle. But if they had done research, don't you think it's possible? If they had given research to this class, this is the kind of stuff that we would have come up with. Wine in a can. And they would have been nothing. And they would have told us, you know, you're just a bunch of students wet behind the ears from the Nazarian College at Northridge. Good idea. It's very cute. Bye-bye. That has happened to us many times. That we told the client what to do, and then he says, bye-bye, good luck. Good luck, son. You know, and then happens. And here, that's typical things that we would have done. You know, we did it for a tennis racket. We had the #1 manufacturer of tennis rackets in Germany. They came to us and asked us to look at how to grow the business, their business. And we came up with an idea which was fantastic, which was very small. I mean, it barely existed. The opportunity was very small when we told them that, but we saw it, they was growing very fast. And the racket manufacturer says, no way, that's the last thing I ever do. And now, if they had done that, they would have multiplied by 20, like the same as this, same story with the tennis racket. They thought we were crazy. So it is very, very crazy to think people are crazy. Here's a last example. So this time I'm not talking about some client or another business. I'm talking about a student that came to see me at the end of class. You know, student come at the end of class, say, hey, my grandma used this. And you know what's the problem with this? My grandma has a problem with this. If she open the tube, take a pill, swallow the pill, walk away, looks at Derek, the policeman on TV, and then after Derek goes, did I take my pill? Oh, I forgot if I took my pill. And he says, my grandma does that every day. And I remember doing research at Northridge, and I did some research, and I found that almost all the grandma forget. All the grandpas forget. More and more grandma and grandpas are taking pills. 20 years ago, they had one of these. Now they have 15 of these. They get confused. They don't remember what's going on and all this. So I thought of the RX timer cap. And I said, oh, that's really cool. Yeah, that makes sense. You have the research, you have the problem, you have the solution, you created some prototypes. And when I saw the students the next time, he said, he was not a student anymore, actually, he had graduated. He said, here's the prototype. He gave me a prototype. I don't think if I have it here somewhere. I forgot where it could be. Yeah, he gave me a prototype. Yeah, he gave me a prototype. I hold the prototype. I say, what a good idea. Right? And then he says, what should I do? And I talked to him. I said, you should go see CVS, you should go see Costco, you should go see Rite Aid, you should go see all of these people, all the pharmacy, and not try to sell it to the people, because it's a lot of work to sell to 1 million people. It's much less work to sell it to one. Which business is easier? Selling 1 million of these to one person, or selling one of these to 1 million people? 1 million of these to one person is less work than selling one of these to 1 million people. And he was like, oh yeah, that's good. So then that's what he did. And all this, if you go to CVS, if you go to all these places, you will find the RX timer cap. It's everywhere. Now the student lives in the Bahamas. He has a long yacht with a jet ski in the back, and he just smokes a cigar in his jacuzzi. He's a multi-millionaire. It's everywhere. This was 8 years ago, something like this. 8 or 9 years ago. RX timer cap. Just a student taking the class, understanding this concept of just NG&D, opportunity, STP, research, doing consulting. It's that simple. What does business need the most? Money, A. Market research, B. Help, C. D, time, or E, a solid business plan. What do they need the most? What do you think?
I would say E.
Why do you think it's E?
Because I feel like all of the other ones revolve around E.
Exactly. E, I can go back to it to see it does not exist. It really, I don't know if you understand what I mean by it does not exist. It exists, but it exists because it's made of the research, it's made of the budget, it's made of the timeline, the production, the marketing, the accounting, and all that. So by doing what we're doing now, we have to do research. So all of these are important. So it's not like which one is not important. I'm not asking this question. Which one is? They're all important. Do you need help? Yeah, it's good. You always need help. You need the money. You need the time. What's interesting? Why did I put money in there? Because most people, if you ask them why what's their dream is to have my own business. Oh, okay. And then if you still spoke to them and tell me about it, and then you ask them at the end, oh, but man, you look like you had good ideas. Everything was good. Why you didn't do it? And usually they tell you it's because of money. I didn't do my dream because of money. So that's wrong. Because there's a lot of people with money that don't have time to take care of things, and they're desperate to invest it. Because if you put money in the bank, you're only insured for $250,000, and it only grows by 0 point nothing. So people look for ways. You have lots of money. You have millions of dollars. You're not going to let it in the bank. You got to invest it. Otherwise, you take a chance. You put it in the bank. You lose it all if something bad happens. So you have to put it in real estate. You put it in many things. You invest in startups and all this. So that's what rich people. But then you go, wow, I didn't realize that. There's not many rich people. There's clubs. The Maverick Clubs is a club in Los Angeles where there's people every week that go and pitch their idea, and there's billionaires that are there sitting and listening to the idea, and if they like it, they give business cards, and then they keep talking and invest. Maverick Club. So there's people constantly willing to give money. So money is not a problem if you know market research is necessary. Help, that's what we're doing right now. We're doing help, the consultant. Time is either the first or the second reason why they tell you I didn't do it. I don't have time. I'm too busy. You're too busy to do your dream? That's kind of crazy. It's like, what kind of life is this? To be too busy that your life doesn't have the time for your dream. Sad. And then a solid business plan, which is what people think the less. The number of people that I meet that have businesses, like A2 Milk, that's not the situation, but when we do like the one that I did last in fall, I only did small businesses. Small businesses, are businesses with 10 people, 15 people or less. And ask them, do you have a business plan? Because sometimes they don't want to be feeling bad about themselves. They say, oh yeah, I have a business plan. Then I say, oh, can you send it to me? And they have nothing to send because they don't have a business plan. Oftentimes when you ask people, do you have a business plan? They say, yeah, a business plan is I buy low and I sell high. That's my business plan. But that's not a business plan. You don't know what's a business plan. So if you're a small business, how long is your business plan? Maybe it's only 5 pages, but you don't want to do anything that has to do with business without having some understanding of what's a business plan and writing one. Look around you, ask the people that you know that have a business if they have actually drafted a business plan. And you will see that 98% of the time, they have nothing. And if they have something, it is not a business plan. It's just a horrible 5 pages. That's incomplete. Okay, so you need to do research. And where do you look for research? You look for secondary data and primary data. Secondary data is the data that really exists. Primary data is the one that you have to collect yourself. You also do qualitative versus quantitative research. So I talked about this when I talked about JD Power just before. Quantitative research is the idea that the value is in a number. So you don't ask many questions, but you ask it to many people. How often do you drink milk? How much milk do you drink? How do you drink the milk? And you have the pre-answer. I drink milk with coffee, without sugar, with tea, with whatever. And you have all the predetermined answer, and you give this to 10,000 people, and then you get it back. That's quantitative research. The advantage is it tends to be reliable because you have a large data set. Qualitative research is therefore done by doing interviews or a few focus groups, by talking to people. Disadvantage is it's less reliable because you have few people, so the confidence is a little lower. However, you don't ask just a few questions. You ask many questions, and you can adapt to the situation by asking people to develop something that they're talking. So you can go in more depth You can't really go in depth in quantitative research versus you can go in depth with qualitative research. In addition, with quantitative research, you can be reliable, but you don't really know if it's the truth. It's what they answered. Versus in qualitative research, you can counter questions, ask for commenting, you can ask for more details. People may be good at lying, but it's just harder to not say the truth if you have in front of you a good interviewer. Now, what are the 3 layers of research from the simpler to the more complicated? So the simpler is called exploratory research. You just explore, you're just doing some very basic review. And usually that one talks about looking at secondary data, so the one that already exists. So you have one question, which is why people drink milk. And you put it on Google, just to use a simple database, Google. And then you have recent research that answers that question. Your exploratory research could be done. You can move to the next one, descriptive research. And then descriptive research is therefore doing quantitative research, meaning asking all kinds of questions to large amount of people. And you could have some quantitative research in your exploratory because you find some existing published quantitative research that you find. So exploratory research is not just qualitative. It is just that it's quantitative secondary already existing and qualitative already existing or that you're collecting. For the sake of this project, and because I think it's sufficient 95% of the time, you should only do exploratory research, which means that you look for existing research, quantitative, qualitative, already published. You try to look for research that is from the best sources. For example, the PowerPoint I was reading last night had an issue. I think I didn't mention that in my review, but they were looking at what do people think about milk, A2 milk in Italy. And then they were putting into the opportunity section something that people in Italy were saying about A2 milk. The problem with this is it's Italians. So there could be, maybe there's none, but there could be a difference between Italian consumer and how they consume milk versus Americans. So trying to use what Italians think about milk in order to sell and change how you sell to Americans, I find it pretty risky unless you also have determined that there's not too much differences between the two groups. So exploratory research that's all you need. So just remember that secondary data, qualitative, quantitative, and qualitative research. So in qualitative research, what you're going to do? You're going to do some interviews with kids, maybe interviews with parents, interviews with older people, interviews with people that like A2 milk, interviews with people that don't like A2 milk. That would be very interesting as well. Find out why they don't like it. People that don't know what it is, but they've heard about it. Try to see how people get to know this product and all that. So all kinds of interviews. And then you move into focus groups, which is that you take 5 people at the same time that you interview, 3 people at the same time that you interview. So it's like 3 to 6, because more than 6, it's a little bit of a zoo, and less than 3, it's not really a focus group. It's almost like an interview to 2 people. Okay, so the last one I'm not talking about here, I haven't talked about here, is causal research. Causal research is the research where you're going to try to show through an experiment cause and effects. So that one is sort of the most scientific of the three methods or 3 degrees of research, because you're going to have to have 3 groups. You're going to have to have one group that so let's say you're going to do an ad for A2 milk, and you're going to do one ad that is funny and shows that it's entertaining and it's cool and easy and to drink A2 milk. Another ad that shows the health benefits, so it's more serious, logical, rational, and then these 2 are going to be given to 2 different groups of people, group A and group B. funny ad A, funny rational ad B. And then you are going to have a group C that you don't give the ad. And then these two groups have to be, because it's a quantitative research, so you need to have lots of people. So let's say 200 people in each group. And you're going to give them a set of questions to answer before they see some videos where there's going to be the ad in the middle. They're not supposed to know that this is about measuring their perception of A2 milk. They're just here to watch some videos and give their perception in general. So you need to have questions about all kinds of different things, so that way they don't give you the answer that they think that they should be giving you. It talks about different subjects, so they are not able to pinpoint what this is about the A2 milk. And so they see the video, and maybe there's a programs, maybe there's a music video, and then there's an ad of A2 milk, then there's something else. And so before they're going to give their opinion of A2 milk, and after seeing that, they're going to give their opinion of A2 milk. What you want to try to measure is the cause and effect that the ads have generated. And you want to see that if there's no ad of A2 milk, people have the same opinion when they talk about A2 milk before watching a bunch of videos and after, versus the group A and B, which have had an ad of A2 milk, have changed a little bit their perceptions. And you try to show which ad has the biggest impact. And that's the ad that you will recommend to be using, for example. But you could do this with pricing, you could do this with the design of a product, you could do this with anything. So you could do causal research, for example, with A2 milk in terms of the packaging, because we know that packaging is an issue. But with causal research, it'd be very rigorous, very complicated, and it will require quantitative research. So my recommendation is you can do something very similar by doing it through interviews as well. In interviews, you just show different packaging and you ask them what do they think. Is it reliable? You can't say it's reliable because you don't have enough. The sample is too small. But it's some feedback, and then you present it as people comments, people feedback versus percentage. So I say this all the time. 1 person out of 10 remembers it. But when you use qualitative research, I'm going to say it 3 times, but 3 times, 50% of the class is going to remember if I say it 3 times. Qualitative research, you cannot use percentages. Qualitative research, you can't use percentages. Qualitative research, you cannot use percentages. Why? If you discuss with 10 people, and there's 9 that says that A2 milk packaging looks good, and 1 that says it looks terrible, you cannot say that 90% of the people think the packaging is good, because it's only 10. 90% is per cent. Cent means 100 in French. And so everybody in the world uses the word percent, and that means per 100. So you cannot use the word per 100 when you use 10 people. So when can you use it? When you have 100 people. So then you say, oh, could we do interview to 100 people? No, because an interview to 100 people, just that in itself probably will take you 2 months, and we don't have the time to do that. So then you could say, if I go very quick, but the problem is I would rather have you do 10 interviews, serious quality interviews, and not use the percent because you're not having 100 people that you talk to, versus, going very quick in 5 minutes interviews to 102 people and then be able to use the percent. It would not make sense. You don't want to be using the wrong methods. And the right methods is percentage goes with quantitative research, because there's hundreds to 100,000 of people that say X, Y, and Z. All right. So, or causal research, because you're also using quantitative research, that's also where you can also use percentage. So in your situation, you won't be able to present percentage when you talk about primary research that you collected yourself, because you did qualitative research. Could you still be presenting percentage? Of course, because maybe you collect secondary data of people who have done quantitative research, which have presented tables where there was some percentage, and then you're borrowing this percentage to make your arguments. So I'm not saying there will be no percentage in your presentation, but no percentage in your presentation from your own primary data collection, because it's irrelevant and it's a mistake when you use these talking about people's answer. So how do you present it? Well, you could say that you did an interview of 10 people, that there was 3 that saw this and 6 that saw that and 1 that didn't know. And their comments was mostly this. So it has to be qualitative. Qualitative research makes qualitative data. So it's the comments, the quality of the comments that matters. The name of the anyone found the name of this person? It came back to me, the name of the alumni that is one of the most famous at CSUN. So nobody found, but you're right. Someone mentioned in the chat room, what they say, that YouTube guy who yells a lot. Yes, he yells a lot. I mean, that's his entire video is not about he's yelling, but he does yell quite a good number of time in there. And his name is Dan, as of Daniel, I guess, Pena, P-E-N-A. And so do I recommend him? I recommend him for several reasons. 1, because he's good. He's very good. 2, he's a CSUN alumni. I mean, it's like, and how good he is in between and comparison of all the people on YouTube. He will be one of the best. So it's like one of the best on YouTube happens to be from CSUN. Great. You can check him, but you need to pass on some of his style. He does yell. He can use prophetic bad language. But I think he means very well. And he's right mostly right for the most part. He does have a political point of view as well, which is, if you have a political point of view, you're by definition not universal. So some of you may love it because it's your political point of view, and some may hate it because it's not. So if you can pass the political point of view, which he doesn't do all the time, but sometimes comes out because he's very spontaneous. His speech are not prepared, and he's not like a very academic spokesperson and all that. He's more of a spontaneous, very entrepreneurial, very gut feeling type of person, instinctive, which it's funny because it's something that I try to teach, and that's within the concept of leadership, having gut feelings and instinct and your own sense. It's very good. That's part of leadership. But I don't want you to think that this is number 1, because the problem is the people that think they have the best instinct and they're going to be the best business people because they have the best instinct are therefore in big trouble. I think it's much better to be modest and say, maybe I have a good instinct. Let's see. I'll try to use it, and I may be wrong, and I'll be careful, but I'm going to try to be more organized than instinctful. And the more you're organized and the more you do research, and on top of that, use your instinct, the better. So it's research that what exists cannot be denied as much, versus your instinct may play against you. So I don't fully recommend it. Do you have any questions? Any comments? Do you what is it that you heard today that was something that you think you learned something that was valuable? Anyone willing to comment on that, just to share with the other students?
I think it was really interesting when you were talking about JD Power and how there was like, they're such a big company, so it was kind of hard for the students to like wrap their head around figuring out like what they could have done like wrong, in their like business.
Yes.
And then being able to like just find like this small little piece that just didn't fit within their puzzle, and making it and figuring it out, and then like obviously like getting a job out of it. So I thought that was really interesting that the students like were able to figure that like little piece out in like such a large company.
Yes, very much. And that's, not only it's a large company, but it's a company who is the the epitome, the stereotype, of what is to be a consultant. So it's like they are the teachers of the consultant. The consultant, they learn. Actually, it's funny. I found Yeah, let's see that. I show you this. Because I found the picture of the students after they presented. No, it didn't. Oh, wait. Stop sharing. It doesn't let me share. No, it doesn't let me share anymore. I don't know why. You can't see the picture of the students, right?
No.
No. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it doesn't let share. Okay, so yeah, I found this. I took a picture of they're presenting. So yeah, but it's, you know, those students did not. Maybe they trusted me, and they say, okay, if he thinks I can do it, let's do it. Oh yeah. So, but here's what's important, because you will see their presentation inside Canvas. So just to finish the class before you go, I'll tell you what's interesting about their perspective. They had to they had to present, because what happens is JD Power, their website back then, was a website that was presenting information as if it was like a universal type of information. It was not targeted at anyone specifically. So when we went to JD Power and we said, your website, do you have some kind of definition of the consumer that are using your website? And JD Power said, no, we don't have a definition of who are the consumers looking at our website. So just this is just amazing, because JD Power is famous for a lot of things. And they, you know, it's a consulting firm. Now, maybe you don't know that. Most people think JD Power is a company that gives free ratings. But the way they grew their business is they give free ratings. So the consumer use the ratings for free. And then the businesses go to JD Power to ask for a recommendation from them on how to make it better to the consumer. So giving information to the consumer, it's only to build their reputation and building a bridge between them and the consumer, which is eventually forcing the businesses to take them into consideration, because then eventually the businesses say, you know what, they have a direct connection with the consumers. If we want to improve our position with the consumers, we have to ask JD Power to tell us what to do, because they are the guru on how we businesses can talk to the consumers. So that was the most fascinating thing that I learned from Mr. Power, is how he started the business. He started the business with his wife, and they created this relationship with Toyota. And eventually Toyota let them do surveys of their consumers. But Toyota never wanted to do that. They just thought these were funny people wanting to ask the consumers, what do they want? And eventually they went back to Toyota and said, oh, the people say that, the people say that, the people say that. So after a while, they said, oh, what do the people want? We're going to give them what the people want. But we're not going to ask the consumers, because we have people called JD Power. They really know what to do. So we'll ask JD Power to ask the consumer, and then to tell us, and we'll pay them for that. So that's how they build their momentum. What was very interesting is it took almost 20 years. So I repeat this, 20 years, almost, I think it's like 16 years or whatever, for JD Power to help Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and Mazda. So they helped all the Japanese before. It's not like they wanted to help the Japanese, but the Japanese were the only one that eventually, starting with Toyota and then Honda and all that, started to think about JD Power as the source for them to figure out what the consumer wants. It took 15 years or more for the US car company to finally give up and say, okay, let's call JD Power, because we need them to tell us what we need to do. So for 15 years, the Japanese car went from being nothing to being, I'm sorry to say, but better than the Americans. And at that time, the American cow says, enough of this. Let's ask the same people the Japanese are asking. And then the American kept up. And so you could see that the same thing has happened for the past 20 years with a company called Hyundai. But 20 years ago, if I asked the 26 students who has a Hyundai, I would not be surprised there's 2 or 3 students that have a Hyundai. In 2020, in 2000, if I was asking who has a Hyundai, the students would not even know what's a Hyundai. So the Korean was much smarter. They didn't wait. Is when they came to the US right away. They said, quick, let's go to JD Power. And they used JD Power because they could see what they did with the Japanese. They could see what they did with a company called Lexus, JD Power. And then they did for pretty much Hiltons and everybody else. So going back to what Carson, right? Is that your name, Carson?
Yeah, it's Carson.
Carson mentioned is for the students to discover. Imagine this. That's like make a beach that JD Power did not know who was the consumer of their own website. With the students, we were like, wow. I mean, this was like, I was telling people around me, nobody believed me. And then to go back to JD Power and say, we're going to tell you who is your consumer, you, JD Power, from your website. And we're going to use qualitative research again, which is that they are the most famous for consumer research and telling other people who are their consumers using quantitative. We did it qualitative. I don't know what to tell you. It's like buying petroleum with I don't know, UN or euro. You know, it's something. There's things that you don't do. It's like people, you take people's blood and you find it's not red, it's blue. And you go, blue blood. What is big discovery? And then doing it the opposite of what they would. And then the students, what they did. So that's what you want to see inside their presentation. Is they use what I recommend that you do, that I've been recommending for more than 20 years to my students, is that you do persona development. Persona development is what you see in many of my presentations where the students talk about the different people. And I will teach you to do that. It's like STP, but in a much simpler way. It's even simpler than segmentation, targeting, and positioning. It's persona development. And we did this. And that's why I told the students, I said, when you're going to present that to JD Power, either they're going to think you're amazing and congratulate you. I had no idea they were going to hire them. Or they're going to say, thank you very much and all that, and then walk away and say, what was this? This makes no sense. But no, on the contrary, they said the students were very creative and very many different things. And the students learned from it and they walked away with it. And every one of the students in that class became very successful in so many things. It was amazing. And it doesn't pan out right away because they got hired at the end of the class, like 2 days after, oh, we got hired. I don't know if that's something that may happen here, but it's very likely that there will be people in this class that's going to be a big click, a big trigger for them to figure something. Okay. So thank you, Carson, for your comments. And I'll see you on Thursday, and I will finish all this material on concepts. I will talk about strategies. I will talk about consumer behavior, where I'm going to focus again on the J&D. And all of this should prepare you for your work. So hopefully today you give me your SWOT as a draft. If you didn't do it before the class, you can do it after the class. Remember, I am here to help you. So do not treat this as a normal professor type of things. Is I'm here. I want you to be beyond successful. I want you to be a superstar. So it comes from you, and it comes from you from being disruptive. Don't think that you can't do it. And also be nice to the team member you have, because I know our students are sometimes they're tough with one another. You need to listen to the other people. You need to be kind to. They may say something crazy that you don't understand. Maybe they need to repeat it. You want to use everybody's personality and emotions to draw in this, and do not ostracize anyone. Be kind to each other, but make sure everybody works. There should be no drifters, no free riders here. Nobody should be taking advantage of one another, but you also want to be kind. So be as humane as you can, and that would be great. Okay. If you have no further questions, I just wish you a good day, and I'll see you on Thursday at 9. Oh, Priscilla, you have a question?
Yes. So did you want us to edit our SWOT and then resend that back to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
As much as you can. Eventually, that's one thing I made a small change in the syllabus yesterday, but I will tell you because it comes a little bit down the road. There is a few times where we're going to meet, and I don't specify what I want to talk, but there's a few times where I say, you know what, let's focus on one thing. So I'm going to do some experiments where I'm going to ask the students to meet and talk about whatever they want, and we can talk about multiple subjects and keep bouncing all over the place. But there's some meetings where I say, you know what, come in one subject, and you say, you know what, we have a problem with the persona and the positioning. We want you to tell us what you think of this, because your PowerPoint at the end is going to be 20 slides at the end, more or less, right? Maybe 25, between 20 and 25 or something. And there will be some slides, 2 slides, maybe we're going to spend a long time, and some slides is going to be more clear to you. So every team is going to be a little bit different. So do not wait, just, so you were in the group 2 that I already commented yesterday. The big problem here are your opportunities. It's a good draft, you're just starting, but you need to think about this disruption. What is the disruption? What is that the company is really good at? And obviously, I didn't see it in your PowerPoint, but it's this thing that they invented. I mean, they invented the A2, their name, they invented, that's a massive strength, but it's also a big responsibility. And that's where you need to think about what's the future of that company. It's, I would love, but at the same time, I find it very intimidating because I always put my feet in their shoes, because to stay big, they're going to have to come up with something big again. The next move is going to have to be very big. And I feel that it's our responsibility to discover what's that. And so you need to put this weight on your shoulder, say what's the next big thing that they should look at. And also don't put this on your shoulder that you need to find between now and Thursday or next Tuesday. But you need to find many things. That way you can select among them. So yeah, it's a continuous work.
So is it okay if I talk about one of the opportunities that we did?
Yeah.
Or is that something I should ask you privately?
Well, the thing,
or
yes,
with our group?
Eventually we want everybody in their team to have their own
ideas,
confidential thing. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll wait. I'll maybe send you an email.
Yeah, send me an email, and in an email you can just, so keep it simple at the beginning, because remember, I'm not judging you. I'm only here for the final success. So you put it in your own words, even, like I was thinking, what do you think of this idea or whatever, and this and that. It could be very, basic in your own words or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's, it's like sculpting. At the beginning, the piece of wood is very raw. And is it going to be a horse head? Is it going to be a flower? I mean, big difference, a horse head on a flower, right? But it doesn't matter. It's okay to talk about everything. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to work when we have no conversation. That's what I'm saying. So the more conversation, the more we can say this, yes, no, yes, maybe, yes, no. Okay. A lot easier. And that's really my role, because I've done it so many times for so many years. I don't have perfection I'm not perfect, but at least I can say I'm pretty good at this. It's for me, if you give me a list of 500 things, I can go and say yes, no, maybe, yes, no. But if you give me 10, you just have 10. The more you have, the more it's like the more tennis ball you hit, the more there's going to be some balls that are going to be beautiful.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Have a good day. See you on Thursday.